Someone says, I want to hear today's proverb by C.T. Muga. Yes, listening from Central Africa. Oh, a listener in East and Central.
Okay. Number 1 Situation Room listener in East and Central Africa.
I see.
What you've just witnessed is a clear sign that Eric is a man of his word and he was speaking the truth. He had a good weekend.
He did.
Central East Africa.
Central East and
Africa person East Central.
East Central.
It has a good weekend written all over it.
Until Monday is a blur.
Welcome to the show. So today we'll be talking a number of things. Just like we have introduced, we'll look at what's happening in Nigeria. There's SARS in Nigeria. And the Nigerians want to end SARS. Okay? We'll be looking at what type of SARS is this that is in Nigeria. We'll also be looking at the reopening of schools today. It's back to school day. Grade 4, Standard 8, Form 4. Are they going to school? Are they not? So what's going to happen? Also, today is the day that lawyers have vowed they're going to be camping in Parliament. Occupy Parliament is today, isn't it? 12th day of October.
2:30.
Yes, and then also we look at what happened over the weekend. This hustler versus dynasty narrative that's taken root. The future of Mount Kenya is in ODM, according to Jimmy Wanjege. Raila saying he wasn't endorsed. So who's a hustler, who's not a hustler? How do we define a hustler? And who is this that then has the right to use the term hustler? We'll be discussing that in the 7 to 8 o'clock hour. Let's begin where we always begin, and this is tracking the COVID-19 spread in the country and the world.
Right, so we're seeing high numbers of COVID cases in Kenya, COVID-19 cases, and over the weekend, where we saw the highest number in the last few weeks in the country. So Saturday saw a recorded number of 538 cases in the country, and then yesterday saw 388 cases. So the number is rising, whereas just a week before we were looking at 99 cases. Saturday saw 538, and yesterday saw 388. All right. Yesterday also recorded 6 new deaths, and so we are looking at a total number of 41,546 cases in the country. And unfortunately, 766 deaths, with 32,000 people having recovered. So according to the Ministry of Health, again, asking people to be extremely careful because it does look like the cases will rise against samples which are more or less the same in terms of number that were taken a few days ago, as of last week. And so we see a slight increase in those cases. The United States, right on the brink of 8 million cases, 7,991,998 cases in the US, with 219,695 deaths. India, like we said, now has also crossed 7 million mark and is at 7,119,300 cases, now the second in the world, and from what we are told, could pass the United States in no time, with 109,184 deaths. Brazil now at 5 million cases. And there's a lot of pressure on the office of the Brazilian president to do something about this. But, I mean, the horse has bolted. When they had the opportunity to do something, unfortunately, it didn't happen. And they're recording these high numbers on a daily basis. Okay? We're still looking at an increase of numbers around Central America and South America, with Mexico still raking in those large numbers. Bolivia also doing the same, with a record number of cases every day. We're looking at some countries who seem to have been able to stem this spread and are working as well as possible. So the numbers continue to increase around the world. Still some Western European countries really concerned about the increasing numbers that they have seen, from the UK to France to Spain to Italy, with increased numbers. Again, the movement has happened in terms of the summer months coming to an end and going into fall. But a lot of things, now people are going back to work, children are going back to school. There was an alert that came out of Spain and France that they're likely... So France has gone back into lockdown, Italy as well, partially, And then they're looking at this week whether they're going to actually recall children from school.
You know, of interest in Australia, some of the research findings, according to the BBC World News, they have discovered that this virus that we keep referring to, contrary to what previously had been stated, that its lifespan on any surface was actually short-lived, they have found that the virus can live even up to 28 days on certain surfaces. One of those surfaces is, for instance, the glass or the surface of a cell phone, or a glass surface. There's more research being done on this. But this is what is to be expected with anything that is new, as this particular virus and the disease causes new. Every once in a while, you will come up with people who have new findings that we didn't know before. And these new findings often lend themselves also to understanding why the virus reacts and responds the way it does. Yes. And this is probably what is happening. But also remember that when you talk of the virus, this particular creature is alive and it also mutates. So the virus that we're talking about, for instance, in this country, one such finding has been that the virus that has perhaps affected more than 60% of Kenyans was actually a virus that emanated from Europe. That is also a finding that has been talked about.
And that is different from the one from China?
Yes,
Wuhan.
it's a different strain.
Okay.
And the one in the US, they will tell you they have more than one strain, so it isn't one.
This information just keeps, changing and shifting and confusing.
It's
That's
going
where
to
the problem-
continue changing, shifting. That's what it does. Because we are acting on knowledge that is now known. But as people figure out more and more, for instance, okay, we have this vaccination referred to as BCG, okay? For the longest time, it has been accepted and it is known what it does. In the UK, they are now using BCG vaccine in COVID cases because they have found it to be efficacious. Prior to that, they found malarial treatment to be efficacious. So all we're saying is that because of, should we say, the novelty of COVID, there's a lot that is still at the trial phase. And some of the information that we're getting is information that lends itself to this. This is what you're seeing, but it's not absolutely conclusive. But it's what you're seeing. And then there are also, remember, drugs, well, the formulations of certain drugs that are now allowed by WHO to be used on emergency situations, meaning they've looked at it and say it works, but they're not 100% sure of how much harm it can cause. But given the good it can cause, if there's an emergency and you need to use it, by all means use it.
Go ahead and use it.
So this is where we're at. And that's the reality. And that's why opening up the spaces becomes really tricky. Because you can't just say shut down, and you also can't say don't shut down. So it isn't an easy time for any Ministry of Health in this on this planet, and isn't an easy place for any government to be in.
Indeed. I think it just brought me back to a deja vu. I think we've had this conversation before, and I was arguing that perhaps it's time the scientists just, have a conversation create a channel for scientists. Find out what you're finding, keep
Talk
changing
among
it,
yourselves.
talk among yourselves. Because when it comes down to, surfaces, this one now can last for 28 days, this one cannot last for... My friend, the impact that it's having on the ordinary person's lives, you're just not sure what to do.
Actually,
does it last? Does it not
Eric,
last?
you do have a very
Now,
valid
this one
point.
changes, this one doesn't change. So you're meeting somebody who does not have the new information that you have, and then you start having this back and forth of, but I read. No, I read. We have a different strain. No, I heard Dr. Mwasimu Wangangi saying we have the same strain. No. The scientists are saying we have a different strain. Confusion.
Let me tell you what is truly of interest. It is what you're saying has been manifest in this country in this sense. The citizens have decided to interpret that information in the way that suits them.
Exactly.
That is the reality. You say COVID, you say, okay, we've heard. This is what you need to do. They also tell you, yes, we've heard.
heard.
Yes. And then they'll continue doing what they think is the right thing for them to do.
Or you just leave them as they were.
Yes.
They just go back to the way it was before that.
At 16 minutes after 6, let's take a break, take a look at the weather, and then can't wait to hear today's proverb from City Muga. Now that this is the number one situation room listener in East and Central Africa, please don't bring a proverb from West or North Africa.
That's your interpretation of what he's saying.
It's got to be from his region, East and Central.
See, humankind.
Now, surely, if you start bringing us a proverb here from Southern Africa or West Africa, it's not honoring the man.
All right. I am going to bring an African proverb, and a nice lengthy one that sounds like an essay.
Okay, so let's look at that proverb shortly. Good morning.
The weather with Spice FM.
All right, let's look at Nairobi this morning. It's Monday and it's mostly cloudy at 16 degrees. We'll go to highs of 28 today and lows of 13. Clear skies in Nyeri at 14, highs of 26 and lows of 13. Expect some rains later on. Clear skies in Nakuru at 13 degrees, going to highs of 24 today. In Eldoret, it's clear at 12, highs of 21 with a chance of thunderstorms later in the forecast. It's 19 degrees and partly cloudy in Kisumu, highs of 28 and lows of 19. Kakamega is partly cloudy at 16 degrees, highs of 24 with a chance of showers later as well, graduating to thunderstorms. In Mombasa, it's partly cloudy at 25, it'll go to a high of 30. Malindi will also see highs of 29, 30 today, currently partly cloudy at 26 degrees. It's 19 degrees in Kampala, highs of 25 and lows of 18, and also a chance of rain here early this morning. 24 degrees in Dar es Salaam, clear skies, thunderstorms expected later with highs of 30 and lows of 24. Johannesburg is experiencing a drizzle at the moment at 10 degrees. It'll go to highs of 16 and lows of 9, but the rain is going to last throughout the day. Let's look into Lagos, where it's partly cloudy at 31, not raining at the moment. The rains could check in anytime and come down to lows of 24. Getting well into Monday afternoon in Beijing, it's mostly sunny at 15, highs of 19 and lows of 6, and sunny conditions throughout the day. Things are cooling down in Western Europe, and in London it's partly cloudy at 7, highs of 13 and lows of 6, with a chance of showers later on. Clear skies in Paris at 7 degrees, highs of 15 and lows of 6. And let's wrap things up in New York, where Sunday night is still bringing those cloudy conditions at 16 degrees at the moment. They'll wake up to some drizzle later on with highs of 19 and lows of 13.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or www.spicefm.co.ke. Welcome to today's show, where if you are listening via your radio 94.4 in Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, or in Kisumu 102.5, Nakuru 96.0, Malindi 97.7, Nyeri 90.9, or Eldoret 96.7. Karibu sana katika kipindi cha leo. Methali ya siku na Bwana City Muga.
Good morning, Africa.
Wow.
Every morning in Africa, a gazelle wakes up. It knows it must run faster than the fastest lion or it will be killed. Every morning, a lion wakes up. It knows it must run faster than the slowest gazelle or it will starve. Whether you are a lion or a gazelle, when the sun comes up, you'd better start running.
I want to be a warthog.
You do?
Just bury myself in the ground and I'm good.
Okay? This is the worm variety of warthog
Of-
that buries itself.
Get into my hole, stay in there, and come out when things are safe. When the lion has caught his hunter,
And this is a close relationship of the ostrich. Head,
Yes.
head in
Head,
the sea.
sand,
Completely.
bury.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
running? Why are you running?
Why?
What are you running towards?
Yes.
Or what are you running from? All these questions arise. But run.
Okay. So let's look at the headlines. Where do you want to start?
I want to start with it yesterday.
Okay. Okay.
Sawa.
Scramble for Raila. This news of elders, youth, and groups from central Kenya going to Bondo captured all the news items in, well, the whole of yesterday. And debates and debates and debates arose. Now, but the key thing that struck my mind is how relevant is it? And that's why I decided to, how relevant is it?
How relevant is it that a group of men from central Kenya
No, it's not
went to
men,
visit?
group of men, women, youth. It was, according to reports, some said 300, some said 500, but there were many people.
All right. So some 300 to 500 people went to Bondo.
Yes, and then they were also referred to as elders.
All right.
Okay, so the idea was to bestow upon Raila Odinga the what is the term that you use for it? The eldership. He was to be made an elder of that particular community that was represented by this number of people. Yes, and it took place. So Raila Odinga is now an elder. Yes.
A Kikuyu elder.
Yes, among being an elder of many other communities where such honor has been bestowed upon him.
Nice.
Is it the first time he's getting that kind of honor in among the Kikuyu?
Not that I know of. I was hoping you'd tell me. Because, you see, the debate isn't the honor. The debate is if there is an agreed upon formula by which someone can become an elder, and there's an agreed upon number or individuals who can actually bestow. Or this is one of these liberal democratic institutions where there is more than one group, or there are more groups than you can count who can actually bestow this honor. It's the discussion I would like to have, because for the longest time, we've had our politicians being declared elders in all sorts of places. People with fly whisks, all right? Singing, chanting, spitting into the air, patting you on the head, all right? Some shaking you.
Yeah.
Yes. But the truth is, it's supposed to actually have some bearing. It's not just some idle activity. Yes.
So why is it then relevant now? If it has happened so many times before.
With other communities, I'm not sure that he has been made an elder among the Kikuyu.
So what does it matter if he has been made an elder in all the other 41 communities and not this one, and now this time he's being made an elder of this one? How has the eldership of the other communities changed his fortunes, so to speak?
Well, I don't even think it's fortunes. It is.
Or how is it nationally important?
That is. You've gone to the heart of the matter. I think what is of importance here is the optics. And why the optics is this. The optics, as far as politics is concerned in this country for the longest time, has been that the Luos and the Kikuyus don't get along politically. Optics.
Or that
Perspective.
Raila doesn't have any kind of influence in central Kenya.
None whatsoever.
So, if anything, it's just doing something for the image.
And which is not true, really. If you look at every general election where Raila Odinga has vied for president, he's gotten some number of votes in central Kenya. There are people who are central Kenya luminaries who have openly declared their support for him. So if you get 500 of them coming together and saying, now we also declare our support for him, I don't see what is the difference here. That's what I'm saying. Look at the people who, for example, have supported him. For example, this group on Saturday was being led by, among others, Peter Kenneth.
Yes.
Okay? So Peter Kenneth was not openly campaigning for Raila Odinga in 2017. Peter Kenneth was not openly campaigning for Raila Odinga in 2013.
No.
But they have met. Since 2013 to 2017, we have seen them together. How many other Kikuyu luminaries have we seen saying that they support? Yesterday, he was at a fundraiser with Jimmy Wanjigi. Jimmy Wanjigi is Kikuyu. We have seen the leader, the chairman of Royal Media Services, in previous times, openly declaring support for him, and very many others who have come out, Charles Njonjo and others. Those are Kikuyus. So this time that 500 of them have come together and gone in to Bondo to visit Raila Odinga, and he says it was not a blessing of him was as a presidential candidate.
It wasn't an endorsement.
It wasn't an endorsement, whatever. So
It
why
would-
is it that it's becoming, why would it be a big issue that this has happened and not any other?
It reminds me of a story I used to hear that among the Kikuyu it was said that the leadership within this country would never pass the Chania River. I've heard of it many times. So that when President Kibaki became president, and he comes from Nyeri, indeed the presidency had passed the Chania River because the Chania River is in Thika.
Yep.
Now, there are things that are said, and with time they form part of traditional belief or even folklore. What I mentioned earlier about the differences that those two communities have falls into that category. But the relevance, in my view, becomes a little more pointed because of the political drama that we currently have. There's this clear distinction between Jubilee, where there are people within central Kenya who support the deputy president, and there are those who support the president, meaning what we see is that there appears to be a strong division within the Jubilee Party. So when you have a group of people going to endorse the former prime minister, again, against that backdrop, there's the discussion of the handshake, according to some people, is what has helped disintegrate Jubilee. So what you're then seeing is that there are people who, from within central Kenya, who have decided to show their allegiance, direct allegiance. And they're doing this by bringing a representation. We still belong to a community where people who are referred to as elders are considered to be revered, people whose views are not to be taken lightly. That's where this whole discussion comes from. Whether their views are taken seriously and whether they're actually genuinely revered, that's a totally different discussion. But the optics of it, the political climate, and the political drama that we're currently involved in, that, in my opinion, is where the relevance comes in.
Okay.
Yes.
I see what you're saying. I'm just saying sometimes I am hesitant to board on such bandwagons because some of these optics are manufactured. It is manufactured so that you sell this narrative. If you are telling me that this particular group of people who are then widely recognized as the Kikuyu Council of, like for example, we have the Luo Council of Elders, which has fractions, right? But let's say that this,
But they're there.
they're there. Now, if
You have
you are
the
telling me about
Njuri
this particular, the
Yes.
Njuri Cheke, this particular leadership of Njuri Cheke, the one that's more widely accepted as the leadership of the Njuri Cheke, are the ones who are saying this, then it is something. But bringing some people and taking them to Bondo and saying that now we have brought in Wazes, it's the same as the other day when you had the group of Nandi elders who were blessing the deputy president.
Yes.
And they were called the Talai clan.
Yes.
And the whole conversation then started emerging. Is this the real Talai clan or is it a different Talai clan? all of this is manufactured optics for political expediency.
Actually, you do have, again, today is a day for making valid points, Eric. But you see, politics will not be politics without that drama. Politics has ingrained in it the element of not just drama, but serious entertainment. So you must always, you cannot discount. If you were to take seriously what politicians say on the podium and what we see on social media, goodness gracious me, where would you be?
Where would you be?
Some of them say the craziest of things.
Yeah.
But people like it because, this is entertainment.
It's some proper entertainment.
Yes.
Okay. At 6:30, let's take a break, see what's happening on the roads this early Monday morning, whether there's going to be some sign of traffic flowing or at some point some bottlenecks. And then we look at other headlines in today's papers. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic.
All right, let's look at where the holdups might be this morning. It seems to be some drama right around Kitengela, and matatus are not operating. Public service vehicles not operating in that area for some reason. We'll try and find out what may be going on there. So some passengers are stranded trying to get out and about this morning. We're going to see the holdup of traffic then on Mombasa Road as far back as the Weybridge today from what we've been able to see so far, guys. So Mombasa Road looks like it's going to be one this morning. It is Monday and quite a lot of extra traffic today with some going back to school. There's a build up all the way then towards from General Motors then towards Airtel as they then get towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. That has already started to build up. Coming off of Thika Road this morning, what is it looking like now? Quite some traffic getting into the CBD as you get to the Pangani underpass. So now that's what we're looking at. Mombasa Road and Thika Road seem to clog up just a little bit. Getting into the CBD as well, you're going to see some traffic within the town. All right, so we're going to keep an eye on this and see what it looks like in a short while. You're stuck anywhere or you find an alternate route, let us know. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter, or text us 40127.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
25 minutes to 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We're looking at other big headlines in the papers today. Page 4 of the Standard. MCAs take home hefty allowances. This is according to a new report by the Controller of Budget, Ms. Margaret Nyakango, who released a report that shows that MCAs, famed for their extravagance, have done it again. Amid massive job losses occasioned by COVID-19, the MCAs increased the allowances that they received in the last months of the previous financial year. Between April and June, MCAs increased their allowances heftily. So, 7 county assemblies more than doubled their sitting allowances for MCAs and speakers, with the biggest beneficiaries being those from Samburu, who enjoyed a 6-fold increase. 600. Each of the 28 Samburu MCAs took home an average of 123,409 in monthly allowance. That's an increase from 20,317. So by December last year, on average, every month an MCA would take 20,317 shillings in allowances. By June, they were going home with 123,409 shillings on average in allowances. The 31 MCAs in Marsabit more than doubled their average monthly sitting allowance during the period under review, taking home 201,000 shillings compared to an average of 63,000 shillings. Nandi MCAs saw their monthly sitting allowances increased to 82,000 from 46,000. So this story basically just breaks down the percentages in terms of how much, what kind of increase the MCAs got. Kirinyaga MCAs increased their allowances by 165%, Isiolo by 149%, Embu by 112%, Machakos 102%, Migori 97%, Kajiado 89%. But still, something to note is that all these increases were still below the budgeted allocation for allowances. The approved allowances, according to budgetary allocation, was 2.65 billion shillings. They closed the year having spent 2.17 billion shillings.
So it's really
even
not
after
cost for long.
increasing all that, they still
Didn't finish the money. So they haven't done anything wrong.
If you actually look back to last week, there was a report, again, by the same individual.
Control of budget.
Yes. And they were saying that actually out of all the counties, only 7 counties were able to actually, 2 things here. One, raise the sort of finances that they as counties are supposed to raise to help with their functions, but also to be able to utilize the funds that they're given as they should. You know, you wonder. You read it, and I asked the terminology. So essentially, they can't burn this money as they ought to.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean the money is not gone. It's gone. But the use for which it was intended is not what it has been put to.
Of course.
Yes. And then there's the issue of raising revenue. Man, if 40 counties cannot raise revenue, my friend, 40, because it's only 7 according to that report, then this problem is much bigger than we think. But then there's now the question of representation. People are starving in your county, and what you're doing, everyone is taking a cut, and you are quadrupling,
Your allowances.
sextupling.
Yeah. Your allowances. I mean, what alternate universe do you abide in, for crying out loud?
Surely. I mean, it's just crazy.
They've abided there long enough. It's just that now it's becoming obvious and it's out in the open.
And you ask yourself then, at what point did these things pass? So anybody was checking, but then they're going to say, well, we're well within our rights of 2.2 billion. We've only gone to 2.1 billion. So really is no problem. We've not done anything.
But if also you think
wrong,
about
quote,
it,
unquote.
this is the period when there was lockdown. And so really
When were they sitting?
the number of sittings was expected to have been reduced.
Yes.
Right?
Not just expected, they were supposed to be reduced.
So if between April and June you have allowances have moved from 20,000 shillings to 200,000
yeah.
shillings, what exactly are you talking about? What is it that you used to justify? Are you saying that's because of COVID now I had to travel just alone in my car? I had to take a longer route to avoid COVID, so my fuel allowance was high. What is it?
It would be interesting to see the reason.
That my sitting allowance now, because I was sitting there and I was breathing the same air that's being breathed by somebody else, I was at higher risk. So that my what exactly? I would like to see how they justify this increase.
I think it would be interesting to see it. It would be very interesting. But remember, you are coming from a perspective that they actually need to justify it in a way that you would think is in tandem with the,
Satisfactory.
yes, or in tandem with the law. the question you raise is important. Which alternative universe do they actually reside in?
Yeah.
Yes. If you look at what we have heard time and again, whether it is the governor, whether it is some MPs, let me state again, some governors,
Right.
some MPs, and then the county assemblies, some of the things they've been up to, my friend, very few of these things can actually stand very close scrutiny. And they did it because they felt they could do it.
Yeah.
And there was nobody stopping or checking.
No.
Well, not so good news for Kidero and his wife as they've lost the battle to block wealth probe. The couple moved to the appeals court after anti-corruption court dismissed their case. A probe on how former Nairobi Governor Evans Kidero got his wealth will continue, a court has ruled. The Court of Appeal has declined to bar the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission from probing Dr. Kidero and his wife, Susan Boyer's property and accounts in a quest to recover unexplained wealth. Justices Roslyn Nambuye, Daniel Musinga and Gatembu Cairo ruled that investigations and filing of an asset recovery case had not started. Hence, Kidero had not convinced them that barring the anti-graft watchdog from investigating his family's wealth would be adverse. And I quote, the applicant has failed to controvert the second respondent's averments in their replying affidavit that pending completion investigations, filing, prosecution and conclusion of the criminal cases against the applicants and the filing of the asset recovery suit. So this has been filed, heard and determined. They went to the appeals court after the anti-corruption court in Nairobi dismissed their case in June. So the probe is going to go ahead. And the explanation of this wealth, if it cannot be explained, then it's going to be taken over. And this is, of course, is in tandem with the latest ruling that if you can't explain your wealth, it goes to the state.
Well, okay. Interesting. The wheels keep turning.
Slow but sure.
Yep. They keep turning. There's a company called Kakuzi. Of course, you know Kakuzi. It's listed in the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Now, Kakuzi is facing some serious publicity nightmare starting the weekend. But it started a couple of years back. There's this lawyer called Lay. Right? This lawyer called Lay is the same lawyer who took a case to the UK on behalf of Mau Mau. Also, same gentleman took a case on behalf of
Samburu women.
Men and women who were injured by explosives left there by British troops. Now, he's taking Lady. He's taking a case on behalf of what he says is former employees and people in the neighborhood of the Kakuzi plantation in Murang'a County. And he says that they have, basically they're accusing the company of abuses. So what are these abuses? Rape, killings, attacks, false imprisonment and mistreatment for 11 years. In the statement sent to the media in the UK and in Kenya by the victim's lawyer, Lady, Kakuzi security guards have been inflicting harm on locals surrounding the plantation that has avocados feeding the UK market. So this is where the connection comes in. You feed the UK market. One of the shareholders of this company is called Camellia PLC, which is a UK company, all right? And that's why they're taking that case there, targeting on this particular company that has linked with a UK company that then also accesses the UK market, and you're just trying to bring issues up all over.
Actually, the issues, it's actually a global trend. Remember, there have been boycotts of many products that are considered to have been manufactured by children, for instance, right? The thing that caught the attention of most people, and of course a movie was thrown in to exemplify it, was blood diamonds. The manner in which those diamonds were procured and how it is that they actually entered the market. Now, when you mistreat people, you enter the realm of slavery or just basic abuse of human rights. So, do you want to eat human right abuse avocados?
That's the question.
Okay.
Do you want to wear bloody diamonds around your neck?
Yes.
Kind of question.
Do you want to wear a garment that has been manufactured by a 3-year-old?
The sweat of 4, 5, 6-year-olds.
Yep.
Yes.
Right.
This case basically has issues. So 79 victims who according to the suit papers, include former Kakuzi employees, women and girls who were raped by the company guards after being caught collecting wood on the farm's lands. Some are said to have contracted HIV, or became pregnant as a result of the rape. The farm will be facing 10 women and girls, including 2 who are underage. Right? So apparently, the company said, all right, so reveal who these victims are. And the law firm said, no, we're not revealing the victims. So let's enter into an out-of-court settlement if you reveal the victims, so we can deal with them and see what kind of compensation to give them. Law firm did not want to do this. So there has been that back and forth. The firm has taken up full-page adverts in today's papers reacting to this particular story and saying that, you know what, this is all false. Full statement. They say, according to the Kakuzi PLC Management and Board, first of all, they are referring to this as a British estate in Kenya. This is according to an article by the Sunday Times. We are not a British estate. We are a proudly Kenyan company with 1,300 shareholders, the majority being Kenyan, and we have been trading in the Nairobi Securities Exchange for over 50 years. The law firm in the UK wrote to Kakuzi in August 2019 stating that they intended to take Kakuzi to court in the UK over accusations of serious criminal acts committed against anonymous claimants. These acts were allegedly committed by employees of the company. In July 2020, Leyday dropped the court claims against Kakuzi. It has now become clear that the strategy was instead to run a smear campaign against Kakuzi and some of its customers. So they say that their dedication to all shareholders and wish to inform them that they are committed to professionally resolving any matter which is brought to their attention. When things go wrong, as they say, sometimes will in a company that employs up to 3,000 people where the land is crisscrossed by public roads and paths, Kakuzi does what you'd expect a responsible employer to do. We investigate the cause, cooperate with the authorities to ensure justice for those affected, make amends where we can, and learn for the future. This is a proper way to deal with allegations.
Do you think this issue has come to an end?
Of course not.
Precisely.
It is just beginning.
And what is of interest?
And the fact that now it has gone into the public since 2019, it has now gone to the public. It is forcing Kakuzi to come out and respond and say, you know what, okay, we employ 3,000 people. Some of these allegations, when they come to our attention, what we do is we start investigating. We cooperate with the investigative authorities. We take any action that is required.
Let me ask the question. By the time this thing gets to the point where lawyers have been engaged, especially lawyers in the UK, do you think that these issues had not been raised before?
Of course.
The local community, and see, this is not saying that we have a very good and harmonious, cordial relations with the local community.
No, they don't. They don't. And this isn't an event. Kakuzi has been there, as they correctly put it, for the longest time possible. We all understand that. But it is clear that the relationship with the locals has not been good.
In terms of resorts, it looks like this is one of the last ones that they've taken. By the time it gets to the point where you're involving lawyers and then going towards, then all forms of previous engagement have failed.
Yep.
Yeah.
And our politicians haven't jumped on it yet.
They haven't.
When they jump on
whichever
it,
side they take.
believe me, it's going to be even more colorful.
Let's just hope that it gets resolved in a manner that is going to uphold justice for all sides.
Eric, the problem with these things is usually even when it's resolved, there are always the intrigues of the money, especially when there is money involved.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
Who gets what and how is it shared? A new problem will emerge. And why I brought in the issue of politicians is when they come in, the issue of money will take center stage.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not even the wrongs that purportedly have been committed.
Nope.
No, it'll be the money.
It'll be the money.
Yes.
It will be the money. Time for us to take a break. 10 minutes to 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. When we come out of this break, we'll talk about lactose intolerance. And CT will teach us a little bit about that, right? Right? What is that? What's lactose? 10 minutes to 7. Good morning.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done.
All right. So for some people, as they get to a certain age, they begin to take milk and then they are not able to keep that milk in. Or they get a reaction. For many times, actually, you don't recognize that it's the milk that you took that is causing what you're feeling until much later. And so this is where the issue now comes in. What is that we call lactose intolerance? What does it mean?
Very simply, the inability to digest sugar. Very simply. And it's caused by a deficiency in a certain enzyme in the body called lactase. Okay, so it means your body is not able to manage this thing well.
Yeah.
Very simply that. Now, there are people who are born with that deficiency. Age and time, some people seem to acquire that intolerance. And why it's referred to as an intolerance is because of what happens to you when your body dislikes it or rejects it. It's the repercussions of it. Now that is it's usually a bit adverse. Yes. So it's not something pleasant, and oftentimes you will actually imagine that well, the last thing you'll imagine is that you are lactose intolerant. You'll think of all manner of diseases because the symptoms, the range of symptoms could be anything. And it's usually after one has had very, very many tests that they actually realize, oh, so this is the problem I have. But it's something that is becoming more and more obvious because more and more people upon testing, after being treated for all sorts of things, you realize that your problem all along was not what you thought it was. It was just that, one, you cannot manage this particular commodity well in your body. Now, of course, the question is going to be asked, so is it diabetes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's about sugar.
Yes. No. Totally different matter altogether. But we'll go into it in greater details when we look at it in the next hour.
All right. And just to inform you that, so it's because of milk.
Yes.
It contains this sugar.
Milk contains sugar. You'd be amazed at how many food products contain
sugar.
Yes.
So new cases here has come up with a product, Gold Crown lactose-free milk, where they have removed this lactose. So you can actually now take that milk and you will not have these adverse effects if your body is not producing this enzyme. So you will not get flatulence, you'll not get the gas, you'll not get bloating, you'll not get
all the discomforts.
All those discomforts that come with after you've taken something that contains milk. If you take this particular milk, then you're fine. Something to discuss, something to try and understand. We're looking at the headlines in today's paper. Remember, in the next hour, we'll be talking about this whole narrative called the hustler versus dynasty narrative and what exactly it means and how it, breaks that down. We will be joined by our guest who's already in the studio, and this is the former Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly and MP for Lagdera, Farama Alim. Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Ali riser, right?
How are you?
Well, thank you.
Well, if you're a good Muslim, you definitely have to be an early riser.
I see.
Because we pray at 5:30, so you must have 5:30.
Should be awake.
Yeah, should be awake by then.
Okay. Looking at the headlines in the papers.
Well, another story today that I know is going to take, it's going to occupy our time today. The LSK is set to occupy the assembly in protest. At least 20 lawyers and political activists plan to occupy Parliament and push for its dissolution following an advisory by the Chief Justice David Maraga. The Law Society of Kenya President Nelson Havi wrote to the Inspector General of Police, Hilary Mutumbai, speakers and clerks of the Senate and National Assembly to notify them of their planned protest. Havi has asked Mutumbai to provide security for the peaceful entry of 20 representatives from the society. I quote, I refer to the advisory dated September 21st, 2020, from the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya to the President of the Republic of Kenya. Parliament stands dissolved by the operation of law on October 12th, 2020, should the President of the Republic of Kenya have failed to dissolve it as advised by the Chief Justice. He's added that representatives of United Green Movement Kenya and the LSK will visit Parliament precincts at 2:30 p.m. to coordinate with the Speaker's modalities of security or rather of securing the area from entry by parliamentarians who effective today will have ceased to exercise their delegative legislative powers on behalf of Kenyans. So they're going to visit Parliament, and they've asked for security from the police. And because as of today, at that time, entry into Parliament by parliamentarians would be unlawful. So occupy Parliament.
So basically, they're going today. It's a meeting with the speaker just to look at the
how they're going to
modalities
secure
of how
the area
to
from
secure,
anybody coming in. Come tomorrow.
right
Right.
from these hallowed grounds.
Yes, because now it would be unlawful for you to touch with your bare feet or even shoed feet.
And the understanding is that the members of parliament are going to sit back and just watch them as they do this, is it?
Well, even if they don't, this is why they've been asked for. That's why they've requested security in this entire process.
What do you expect members of parliament to do, City?
No, what I am actually thinking of is, given that they're lawyers, I'm sure they're going to base their actions on certain legal foundations. But again, are those the only legal foundations that we can quote in such a situation? I'm saying this because I don't know. Yes.
Farah, what would you do?
To be honest with you, there is nothing those lawyers can do about Parliament. This is the hard facts. Because, yes, the Constitution does have many articles that contradict themselves. You can, the Constitution, Parliament itself is an independent institution. The business and the calendar of Parliament is independent. Elections fall on every second Saturday. Is it first Saturday? Sorry, Tuesday.
Second Tuesday
Second
of
Tuesday
August.
of August.
Fifth year.
The fifth year. After 5 years. Now, which one takes precedence over that? Is it this one, which is a provision given to the longer arm of the state? The state has got 3 arms.
So
The legislature,
even with
the executive, and then
without
the judiciary.
looking at the merits and demerits
Yes,
of
yes,
the action by the Chief Justice,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
If lawyers were to go to Parliament and they wanted to occupy Parliament and bar members of Parliament, right? Let's say you were the Deputy Speaker, would you accord them that hearing?
Well, and always discussions are good if nothing else, so that you can educate them on certain things, and they probably have issues that they want to discuss with you. So it's not a dialogue as such, because it's not a conflict to be resolved between the two groups. The matter is a constitutional matter.
Yeah.
Now, which constitutional article takes precedence over the other? The one that of the advisory, and which the president then has the powers to do certain things, or the one that actually sets the independence of Parliament so cast in iron that the president, or anybody else for that matter, has no role over that. You see, that is what is called the independence of that arm, the different arms of the government.
Let us see.
And that is the foundation of democracy.
Because they have taken that particular argument to the courts. Let's see what the court interprets.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean,
and
yeah,
hear what they say.
the courts will, but let me tell you one thing. Even if the courts were to interpret in favor of the parliamentarians, or the lawyers' position, do you know that Parliament is so independent from even the judiciary, to the extent which Parliament can go ahead
Even from the people.
Hang on a minute. Parliament, yes, not from the people. The people, I'll explain that. If the problem with our discussion on some of these things.
We will discuss it.
Instead
We will discuss it when you come into the next hour. Just allow me to interrupt you, because it's now 7 o'clock and we want to look at the traffic. In the next hour, we'll discuss a number of things, among them the hustler and dynasty narrative. Good morning.
Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru.
Okay, guys, it's building up badly this morning already. On Mombasa Road, it's starting all the way from Syokimau, like we looked at earlier. It's not bumper to bumper just yet. It's moving still at this point, but we're likely to see it clog up quite some. On Thika Road, all the way to the Garden City Mall and that turn off there, that's where traffic has begun today. And moving very, very slowly on Thika Road. By the time you get to the Pangani underpass, you would have taken a while. It's a snail pace on Mombasa Road today. The eastern and southern bypasses this morning moving quite well. We don't have a problem there. You're going to come into a stalled trailer, though, right at Cabanas on Mombasa Road. I just saw that now, and that's going to take a while for everybody to move. Police KE doing a good job there is what we're told this morning, and trying to move traffic along on Mombasa Road. We know already that because of the construction taking place on the new expressway, traffic will build up today, and it will be quite something. So let us know what you see. If you get stuck somewhere, let us know. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Text us as well on the line 40127. It's likely to get crazy this Monday morning, but we'll likely hold your hand all the way through.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
2 minutes after 7.
The only way
a
to
very
start.
good morning to you and happy Monday from the studios of Spice FM right here in Nairobi on Standard Group Center in Nairobi. Broadcasting to Mombasa, to Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi on the Spice FM frequencies. Broadcasting to Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and www.spicefm.co.ke. And for the next 2 hours, also live on KTN Home. C.T. Muga, as we begin the hour, please remind us today's proverb.
Well, today I decided to be a bit mouthy about it. Every morning in Africa, a gazelle wakes up. It knows it must run faster than the fastest lion, or it will be killed. Every morning, a lion wakes up. It knows it must run faster than the slowest gazelle, or it will starve. Whether you are a lion or a gazelle, when the sun comes up, you'd better start running.
Run.
You starve otherwise.
Starve or die.
Or die.
Oh, you're talking about human beings.
Wake up and run.
You're not a lion anymore.
Yes.
You don't have to look for praise. But as a man and a woman, you have to wake up and run. Otherwise, you'll not be able to put
Yeah.
On the table.
food on the table for the children. Simple.
So if you're a lion, you're in the dynasty, or if you're a hustler, then you are the gazelle.
The gazelle.
Oh, it could be both ways.
Well, there is the whole dynasty and hustler stuff itself is a fallacy.
That's what we want to discuss this morning, Farah Maalim, and that's why we've invited you. Because a couple of days ago, Farah Maalim is with us in the studio, and actually let me just introduce you. He is the former Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, former Member of Parliament for Lagdera. He's contested for Garissa Town parliamentary seat. So let's just say Garissa politician. And Wiper, what are you, Deputy Party Leader?
Yeah.
Deputy Party Leader of Wiper Democratic Movement Party. So a couple of days ago, you wrote about your understanding and interpretation of the Hustler dynasty narrative.
Yeah.
Talked about Jaramogi and Jaramogi going to school barefoot.
Yeah.
Both Oburu and Raila had poor, rough early lives. Jomo Kenyatta started life as a carpenter and later as a meter reader, earning less than 40 bob a month. Then you talk about the journey of William Ruto and the so-called dynasties, is that Ruto started life richer, freer, younger, and with better opportunities than Kenyatta or Jaramogi, thanks to Moi holding Ruto's hands. Ruto was the youngest minister in Moi's last term, while Uhuru was a nominated backbencher. Then you also say, as a matter of fact, Gideon Moi has never been in any cabinet. Actually, it's Ruto's children who were born into opulence and power. Truth be told, in the 90s, Raila was poor, weighed down by spectre debts. Ida Odinga supported a family with a teacher's salary. You're coming and saying in 1993, William Ruto was a wealthy young man and has never looked back since. I have no problem with programs or issues or visions that are based on political contestations, but the so-called dynasty hustler narrative is fake and packed with fraudulence. Kenya deserves better than this pedestrian con games.
Absolutely.
I got to start
Absolutely.
by asking the question: What is this? What is your interpretation of the narrative, the hustler dynasty
Well,
narrative?
people try and look for some kind of a wagon or a vehicle to try and access power. And this is the wrong one, because there is absolutely no logic or rationale. Ruto was a multimillionaire when he was in his 20s. Kenyatta was a laborer when he was in his 50s.
Which Kenyatta?
Jomo Kenyatta.
All right.
The elder sister of Uhuru Kenyatta used a pit latrine when her father was in detention, when basically she was going through the kind of life.
Okay.
So to try and create, you can talk about an individual. I could have misused my authority or power in any way. So you talk about that. But to try and classify the political class in here, or the contestation on a hustler a dynasty. What dynasty has Raila been in? His father has never been a president. He himself has never been a president. He was a prime minister who was, technically a number two, and with far less powers than Ruto has wielded in his first one term in government as a deputy president. Ruto literally shared the government on a 50-50 basis, and the bulk of it chose not to share it with any other community. Raila, remember when he said that hata mkia pia ni nyama? He took whatever was left, the leftovers by Kibaki is what he took. You know what I mean? Even when we had an accord anchored in law, which was superior to the constitution at that time, he still did not, push the bargain so hard as to make a choice of, you take one, I take the other one. You take one, juicy one. That's basically how it is between Ruto and Uhuru. And that's why he ended up with such very powerful ministers like Treasury, like, agriculture, like all those ones, energy.
So you say that Ruto is a member of the dynasty as well?
If that's the interpretation, you have to look. A powerful, opulent political class. That's the word to use. Dynasty is a fallacy.
It's something that has caught with wildfire, though. Caught the country. Everybody
is talking about it. Yes,
has resonated with this.
And by the way, the word hustler itself.
Right.
The first time I came to that one is, it's about 40 years ago when I finished secondary school, and I read the book of Malcolm X. The autobiography of Malcolm X was called Detroit Red, and he was called a hustler because he was a pimp and he used to hustle drugs. You get my point?
He's essentially a thug.
A thug, basically, but also of course, he was very, very truthful about his past and an honest person. But now to call yourself a hustler in this day and age, when you are a deputy president of a country and you live in a 1.2 billion house.
But Mashima, don't you think even that term hustler,
yes,
if we go back to, say, even the root word itself,
yes,
as it's been used by Kenyans, it actually falls into a category of the evolutionary nature of the word, where it has actually acquired a Kenyan meaning. Because for the longest time, even before this term was popularized by the deputy president, Kenyans talked about their hustle. Now, we think of H-U-S-T-L-E. But if you look at what Kenyans talk about, I would call it H-A-S-O-L, hustle. Okay? People talk about my hustle. Now, it isn't your day-to-day employment. It's this other thing which you do other than what you're employed to do. And they've accepted it for the longest time that everyone must have a hustle.
A side hustle.
A side hustle. Yes. So, in those terms...
To supplement your...
Yes.
Because the other one cannot stretch long enough,
So that is by a certain class of people who have an income, and then they're looking for a side hustle.
Yeah.
But the overall use of the word
yes,
is whatever you need to do to keep running.
To keep moving.
Yes.
Exactly. Like the
Whatever
gazelle.
you
Like
do-
the gazelle on the line.
Whatever you're doing as a gazelle or a lion to keep running,
survive.
that is the hustle.
To survive. Yeah.
Whether you're earning
Not
here
when you're
or-
looking for the presidency, for God's sake.
No.
That's
it's
not a survival
It is
issue.
what you're doing to survive.
Actually, one could argue that even looking for the presidency could be a hustle. If we were to take this argument to
That
say,
is your hustle.
well, he doesn't need to hustle for money because he has it. So he's hustling now for power. So that could be his hustle. But the term was accepted in Kenya to mean this thing that you do to keep your body together. It was called the hustle. Remember, there are two words that come to mind when I think of the evolution of words. The word yes. When you use the word yes as it was intended by the inventors of the language, it means to agree.
Affirmative, yeah.
Yes. However, in Kenya, yes is a greeting.
It's positive.
Yes. It's a greeting. Every language known to man always has an expanded version of it through usage.
Yep.
Now, because of this, when we talk about the hustler narrative, you see, the deputy president may say one thing, but you see, what someone else is hearing is not what we think, because they equal it to what resonates with them. And so they identify with him, not necessarily for what he wants, but for what that word means to them. But then he takes it to a different level. When you talk of hustling at that level of politics, which one would you say younger people or the youth or the populace identify with most? Because, for instance, we've heard the story of the selling of chicken, but we've also heard the story of selling mahamri by the governor of Mombasa. And he himself is also a very visible person, very opulent. Now, if you juxtapose the two and say, okay, there's one hustler who eats in a kibanda, drinks sodas from a kibanda. There's another hustler who has clips with him in some fancy cars like a Ferrari or on a jet. I pose the question, which hustle do you think will resonate more with the larger number of our population? Which hustle?
I think where I see very many of the people who, offer commentaries on the issue of the hustler, some people look at it from the point of the present and the personalities. They forget the point of the narrative, that is the hustler narrative. Just like you've said, City, it is what is the use of this word hustle and what does it mean to very many people? It is those who struggle on a daily basis to put food, a meal on their table. Those who are struggling to take their children to school. Those who are struggling to foot medical bills. Those who are struggling the daily struggle of life, right? So when someone is basically talking about hustling and the hustlers are those people who you're waking up on a daily basis and you're thinking, if I don't do something today, it's going to have an impact on my life today. I've got to do something today. Now, if you look back at who are these that represent then the hustlers, and who are these that represent every group of people will have people that they look up to. So who is it that you look up to? You look at up to somebody who you see has lived that kind of life that you're living through now and has succeeded. Because even you are hoping that one day you'd stop waking up and running around chasing your own tail on a daily basis and at least take a pause. That you can wake up at 10 a.m. tomorrow and you'll still be able to feed your children. You can wake up early tomorrow and you'll still be able to feed your children. It is that connection that people look for. So when you talk about William Ruto, Ali Hassan Joho today, or Jaramogi Oginga Odinga today, it is not the today. It is the beginnings. It is the journey that they went through. It is not the present. It is the journey that is the hustle.
You see why I don't even mention, and I thank Mheshimiwa for having brought that analogy. You see, if we talk about, say, for instance, independence and either fight for it, we have an entire generation who have no clue what we're talking about.
Yep.
It's a story.
Yep.
There are those who lived through it because their parents lived through it. So their experience is very different. It's the same with this term. The benefit that the politicians derive from it is that you mention the word, you'll get resonance.
Yeah.
Immediately. And then you can connect.
Yes.
So, which comes back now to what Farah you're saying. So if you look at what the argument that you put across on the Twitter a couple of days ago, you're comparing William Ruto to those that he's saying are not in his corner, the hustler corner. So William Ruto is on this corner he says, I'm with the people. I am the one who understands the pain. I have lived that pain. And then he's comparing with the opponents. And this is Raila, the president.
When did he live that pain? When did he live that pain?
When he was younger.
How
Are
old
you
was he?
assuming that William Ruto started living at in 1993?
No. When did he? William Ruto was born by his parents, and his parents were probably squatters, whatever they could be,
Yep.
and they were poor.
Yep.
The same my dad was.
Yes.
My dad was earning when I was born 58 shillings, which was 1956. You get my point. But he still managed to take care of us. We did not go out there to say that we are hustlers and we are poor and the rest of it. We didn't want to compare. Everybody had a way of keeping their head above the water and being proud of the way they came up.
Yep.
And because he was a soldier himself, we used to be given free rations. And among those rations was fish. And Somalis don't like fish. So my dad's colleagues never liked it. They would give it out to other Kenyans or whoever else is going to. And in Garissa, we had also the riverine people, the Bantu riverine people. But my dad made sure that we developed a taste for that. So he used to exchange that with some other things. And we had a lot of fish at home. And we had ugali at home also.
Yep.
So the fact that I was going with only one pair of
You had a pair of shoes going to
no,
school.
one pair of uniform.
Oh, uniform.
Yes.
Up to the time I went to secondary school.
Yep.
And in the first time when I went to secondary school, my dad could not afford my fees. He had to borrow from his friends. He had to borrow from his friends. And I got a bursary after that because I went to a national school, one of the top students in my class, and I got a bursary. Not only did I get a bursary, I hustled very hard. I told the principal, I want to stay over the holidays in school and do some work for the school so that I can earn some little money for my other small
pocket
needs
money
here and
the
there.
next time.
He says, we don't have that kind of arrangement here. But what I can do is I can write to the DC to give you a vacational employment in Garissa. And I went for a vacation. Every holiday, I used to come to Garissa, work in the DC's office, earn 200 shillings, take 25 shillings out of that because the bus fare for students from Garissa to Nairobi was 12 shillings 50 cents, and live on that. You know what I mean? At that time, when I was in that school class, there was my colleague. One of them was the brother of a DO. He used to come with tons and tons of money. Another one was the son of a very rich person.
Yep.
You get my point?
Yep.
A number of them. I was literally one of the poorest.
Yep.
But I don't go around saying that I'm a hustler. I grew up in these things. I made all the
But
efforts.
you are
I
a
begged
hustler.
my school to give me.
You are a hustler. You don't have to say it.
No. What is exactly what is?
You don't have to say
You see,
it.
that's a life we all
You-
came through.
Not all.
Kenyatta came
like
through
you have
it.
said, there were people who are coming
Now
to school
let me
with
now
wads
tell
of
you.
money.
Let me now tell you what exactly a hustler is according to the dictionary. A person who employs fraudulent or unscrupulous methods to obtain money, swindler, informal and expert gambler, a game player who seeks out challenges, especially unsuspecting amateur ones, to take advantage of them. In order to win money from them, he earned his living as a pool hustler. Maybe that describes Ruto very well. I don't know. I have no problem with Ruto calling himself a hustler because he's very wealthy and nobody knows how he's made his wealth. You know what I mean? But then, for God's sake, to try and box Kenyan youths into this kind of things. The social culture of a society.
Again, Mheshimiwa. No.
Farah, could
Again.
it be? I mean, if we're looking
This,
at
the use of the word
definitions-
hustler, even without Ruto, was not that.
if we're coming from the definition, and
I
need
don't
to ask the question,
remember
Farah.
anybody. Look, I have been in this country. I have been in an adult transacting politics for 30 years. And before that, I was an adult because my firstborn is probably your age, even older than you. This is the first time I've seen the term hustler being used in the manner it's being used. You know what I mean? It's probably 10 years old, or 7 years old, 8 years old, something like that.
Yep.
And it started with our good brother here.
No.
Well, I don't know because
He didn't start it.
when I was in Parliament myself when he was in the university himself.
It did not
And when he
start
was in
with
YK
parliamentarians.
92.
This is where I say again that you missed the point.
How do I miss
The
it?
hustler narrative is not a creation of a parliamentary class or political class or a rich class. It is a society use of this word. In fact,
When did the society
origins of
create
this,
that?
the origins of this come from the youth and the youth that use Sheng.
Okay, so if
Ili
we
Are
look
you
at
sure you're not
Hustle
looking at
yangu.
the other word hustle, which is HASSLE?
double SLE.
And that is
Yes.
it.
Okay, so if
And that is
we,
it.
Can
Is
we
that
just,
the word you're asking
That
for?
is the word
Let's open
that is the
this-
word that is used in this country. The hustle.
But when you look at this thing, it's HUSLTEL.
Yes.
When it's
Exactly.
written. When it's written.
Why
that
should
is
you write it differently
when it's
from
written,
the way
What
this
it
is how
actually
it's come out.
Mheshimiwa, you see, this is where now we look to your class and say you are taking advantage because when we pronounce it, it sounds the same.
Yes.
Yeah, but there's a difference.
Of course,
Yes, there's a
difference.
difference.
Of course,
There's a
there's a
massive
difference in
difference,
meaning.
yes.
Now, if we're going to look at the hassle that you've brought about, Mheshimiwa,
Yes,
we brought
yes.
this up before. If we're going to look at hassle, it's
Yes.
actually the sweat off your brow.
Yes.
You have to go through a difficult time to get something done.
HASSLE.
Exactly.
That's
All
understandable,
right?
yes.
Now, what has happened
Yes.
is that this word hassle
Yeah.
has been brought about
Yes.
to denote hustle,
Yes.
unfortunately.
Yes.
That's how it has changed in
Yes.
terms of description.
Yes.
Now, if we're going to look at majority the Kenyan youth
Yeah.
or the young people who've said, I've got to do something extra in order to make ends meet. If you ask me, what has happened is that the deputy president has now used that as a point of resonance with the youth. Is there a problem there?
Well, if it is HASSLE, it's not the one that we've been reading all these years.
That's true. That's
you
for
people are
sure.
giving it a different meaning today, and this I'm seeing it, hearing it for
No,
the
we're
first
giving it
time
a
in the
perspective.
spice.
We're giving it a perspective, Mheshimiwa. We're giving it a perspective.
We are spicing it
But
up.
maybe you're trying to take a retreat right now and build up a very brilliant, exit for whoever has been using this, and then whoever has been using this what they call thing. But good luck. Continue.
Mheshimiwa,
Let's keep showing the
are you
difference.
suggesting that we've been spoken to?
No. No. You see, let me tell you one thing.
Yeah.
I can tell you one thing. Look, I have never had it easy myself in my life, and I sweated and worked hard for everything that I've done for myself. Never been given a plot by a government. I've never been given anything. I've never done even a government contract. So if it's struggling, if you want to share so that hard-working Kenyans, that I have no problem with. But then to try and say hard-working Kenyans, you are looking for the lower part of the thing, who are the lower, you know what I mean?
Yep.
One time there was an argument between what was the capitalist those days, and the communist early days. I mean, except him, the rest of you are very young. Communism and capitalism, basically.
Yeah.
Socialism.
Yeah.
It's international
And
socialism.
which led to the Cold War.
Which led to the Cold War, which was there, and basically people like me and him were so fascinated with socialism because then it was going to create certain equality.
It was fascinating.
It was fascinating, but then of course the reality of the matter is that there's wealth sharing in capitalism. There is nothing to share in socialism. You know what I mean?
Or in socialism, some people are more equal than others.
Absolutely. And then what they said is that if you're 20 years old and you're not a socialist, then you have no heart. But if you're 40 years old and you're still a socialist, then you have no head.
You have no head. Right.
So to try and give that narrative to Kenyans right now, to say that we are the poor, struggling, and this is
We're
our
all
class.
struggling together.
Yes.
And so I am essentially, look, if we're going to look at what messaging is, and very clearly, even if we don't want to admit it or not, that's exactly what has been done. That we're all struggling together. I am the one now who can see that because of the position that I am in, and I can lead all of you to this particular place.
But
it's all coming from the resonance.
It's
If
true
you can
indeed.
resonate, and this is the thing, that letting people know, essentially, that he can resonate with them and understands their hassle, all the more reason why they should vote him in.
If you had studied,
Mheshimiwa, may I just interrupt you and ask you that we take a break now at 25 minutes after 7. The hustler versus dynasties narrative is what we are unpacking this morning, and we have in the studio with us Garissa politician, deputy party leader of ODM, of Wiper. Sorry, I beg your pardon, sir. Of Wiper Democratic Movement.
you're not too much off the mark because I was in ODM before.
Yes,
that.
you were in ODM before when you were. Yes,
And we were in NASA together.
Farah Maalim is with us in the studio. Let's take a break right here on Spice FM and KTN Home and online. We'll be back shortly. We want to take a look at the weather and traffic.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to
Slightly
Spice
overcast in Nairobi at 16
FM.
degrees, mostly cloudy conditions, highs of 27 today and lows of 13. Nyeri clear and sunny conditions at 16, highs of 26 and lows of 13, with a chance of rains later on. It's mostly sunny in Nakuru at 14, highs of 25 and lows of 13. Mostly cloudy conditions in Eldoret, likely to rain later with highs of 21 and lows of 13. Kisumu is mostly cloudy at 18, highs of 28 and lows of 19 with showers expected later. Kakamega is partly cloudy at 16 degrees, highs of 25 with thunderstorms expected later. And Mombasa is partly cloudy at 25, going to highs of 30 with cloudy conditions through the day. It's partly cloudy in Malindi at 26. The high will be 29 today and lows of 25. Kampala at 19 degrees is mostly cloudy. Chance of rain later with highs of 25 and lows of 19. It's partly cloudy in Dar es Salaam at 26 degrees, going to highs of 30 and lows of 24 with a chance of rain later on. Mostly cloudy in Joburg at 9 degrees, going to highs of 16 and lows of 8. And Lagos is partly cloudy at 31. Lows of 24, and those cloudy conditions carry on through most parts of today.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life.
All right, still clogging up on
Traffic.
Mombasa Road this morning. It's bumper to bumper and slowed down quite some. It's called Mombasa Road Madness today, and all the way from the Weybridge at Mlolongo heading down towards Cabanas, where that truck is still trying to be, rather they're still trying to take that truck away. So there is quite the traffic situation already on Mombasa Road, and it's moving very, very slowly. It's going to need quite some patience today. Thika Road also the same, whereby you're stuck all the way from the Garden City turnoff and the service lanes, as well as the main highways where we see problems today. If you've not gotten onto those roads just yet, the eastern and southern bypasses can be used. A longer route, but you'll get there without too much of a clog up. Getting into the city, however, right into the CBD from Westlands is not looking too bad, and also from Valley Road as well. So it's a Monday morning. We expect this heightened levels of traffic, and we hope that this opens up soon enough. We'll keep you company though. Spice of MKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter, or text us on 40127 if you're stuck somewhere, you find an alternate route, and we can share.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
The conversation
Nairobi.
continues right here on Spice FM, on KTN Home, and online. In the room this morning is Eric Latif, CT Muga Nduoko, and Mheshimiwa Farah Maalim. We are breaking down the hustler versus dynasties narrative. I think we've gotten to a point where we've agreed. The hustle that we're talking about is the HASSLE, right? That, I mean, the meaning or the application of the word that's used in common language in the country is that. Struggling hard, sweating hard,
There was
working
a time.
hard.
There was a time that Mheshimiwa has been referring to. If you're in college, everybody was referred to as being in the struggle.
Yes.
You are in the struggle.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you talk of poverty again, you must understand, for instance, the yardstick that you're using. If you grew up in the rural areas, walking to school, normal. Running to school, normal.
Normal.
Depending on the area in which you went to school, there are times when you even had just one shot. The shirt was essentially khaki and it reached your knees.
Yep.
It was sufficient clothing.
Yep.
The short you would wear on special occasions. You are barefooted, right? So even when you talk of poverty, there are people who couldn't even afford that shirt. So those were even poorer.
No, that's it.
Okay? Now, the difference is, the meaning that we've acquired now is the rags to riches story, where hustling means everyone who is struggling must eventually become rich. Not get to the point where they are comfortable or to meet the needs that they have, but hustling as it's currently taken, it is a serious rags to riches story as seen or as exemplified by movie stars, football stars, and all these high-profile individuals that we see in the media.
There's another word that comes out of hustling. So, una hustle leo, utaomoka kesho.
Yes.
Kuomoka means that basically you've succeeded. You don't have to do this on a daily basis.
Yes.
You
But I
reach
think
a level of success. Now, whether that success is filthy rich or it's comfortable rich, that's a whole matter of interpretation. But the point is that you're no longer struggling like that on a daily basis. So it's the same way you're talking about. If you look back at growing up in the rural areas, walking to school is everybody's cup of tea.
Everybody walks to school.
So Farah,
Coming back
then,
home is everybody's
had one
cup
for
of
for
tea.
the purpose of this conversation, if that is a definition that is being used, that everybody's going through some kind of struggle and must do something to be able to get ahead, and if this is what the deputy president is hoping that people will resonate with, is it a true representation of his position?
No.
This is what you're saying. This is what your argument is.
Absolutely.
Why not?
Well, let me tell you one thing. I mean, everybody, even including very rich businessmen, go down. How many times has Steve Jobs, literally lost everything and was in debt? You get my point? So people struggle and then they make it. They lose, they make it, and they make it big also. But he did not take a name for himself to describe, what he went through and try and use that one. Because when he says the Hustler Nation, he's supposed to be the leader of the Hustler Nation.
Yes.
When he talks about dynasties, he's not talking about capital accumulation in the country itself. He's talking about the people who are competing with him right now. He feels have got,
A leg up.
a leg up. You see what I mean?
Yep.
Now, when you mobilize a whole nation of 50 million people against a dynasty, and you call everybody else a hustler, and how many are they in the dynasty? The Kenyatta family, the Kibaki family, who is not even there. None of the Kibaki boys wants to
Odinga
become a
family.
president, but the Gideon Moi.
Yep.
Because you have a problem.
Son of a president.
Two of them are sons of presidents.
Yep.
And Raila, according to him, is
Son of a senior political figurehead in the country.
Well, he himself was a prime minister.
Yes.
And he's still in active politics. So if somebody was a president one time, ran for office and became a president, lost, and is coming back again, you don't call him dynasty. You know what I mean? You don't call him dynasty. Like if you can run for the governor now, governor's position.
It's talking about generational, I think.
No. You're now running for a governor. You become a governor. You lose in the second term. You come back after the third term and win.
Yep.
Is that a dynasty?
Well, it depends.
No.
Was your father and grandfather governor?
No, but
We're discussing
none of them.
the implied meaning of the word dynasty as it's currently used.
Yeah,
He
which is where I'm
basically-
heading, and I'm heading to it from.
He wants to
dynasty
buttonhole it into describing a number of people that
Yes.
he wants to fight. Simple as that.
And what is the argument that he's using?
He's using that they are a dynasty.
Second,
That power was handed over to them by virtue of the
second
fact
generation or
that they
third
belonged
generation.
to the same family. This is what we're saying.
No. Who was handed over the power because he belongs to the same family? Raila? Raila became a prime minister in this country.
Not power.
No.
Because the power was handed by his father.
Not power.
a way into things by virtue of the fact that his father, having been the vice president, kind of opened up the door for him.
It was
This
a
This is-
simple biological accident that had absolutely no bearing on his subsequent political, eminence.
So are you saying
And
that-
I was there with him throughout.
Of course,
but
we can argue that.
listen to me carefully. The only guy who can say that he maybe has that kind of a thing was Uhuru, who was handpicked by Moi, and who was the son of the first president.
But could you say the same thing about Ruto, who also could argue was handpicked by
Ruto
Moi?
also was handpicked by Moi to be made a minister, as the youngest minister in that cabinet at that time.
So then Ruto.
So anybody so you see when you try and say this can be applied here, and when there's another one which is parallel, no, you can't apply this one because it doesn't work that way.
So then anything can be applied on any side, whichever way you choose to look at it. Then.
No, the whole thing is a
So-
fallacy.
so
The whole
what I
thing
hear-
has absolutely no logical, it has no philosophical, basis to sit on, so that we're wasting our time talking even about it.
Mheshimiwa, actually, if you look at it and you sort of like deconstruct it, the logical basis of this entire discussion is something we refer to as populism.
Absolutely. This is the populism that Hitler came with. This is the populism that Trump came with the other day. You get my point? That America is for Americans, make America great, get rid of everybody. I'm going to ban all the Muslims. I'm going to ban. And by the way, Ruto is already going in that direction. He's trying to carbon copy everything Trump is doing. If you remember very well, he said, I'm going to put a wall on the Mexican border. The first thing Ruto said is that let's put a wall between Kenya and Somalia. You remember that? You remember that?
I recall
He was a proponent of that.
You know,
And then, Trump goes there and picks up the Bible and stands in there. What does Ruto say? This is a Christian country. Yeah, you got my point. He was going to The Hague. Hang on a minute. Let me just explain this thing.
Please.
He was going to go to The Hague because he was believed to have used ethnicity as a tool and has a role in whatever it is. Of course, that matter, it came to pass because all the witnesses were killed one way or the other. They were either killed or they were bribed or they took off and basically there were no witnesses. So ICC failed. But the fact that 1,000 number of Kenyans died cannot be erased.
Yep.
You get my point. The fact that there were leaders who are responsible for that cannot be erased.
and they didn't have natural causes.
The fact that we know ourselves who were the real architects of that also cannot die, even if the court cannot prove that. But we were there. So everybody knows who was the marshal, the general on one side or the other, mobilizing his people to go and fight the other people. You get my point. So that one is there. Now to try and use a similar narrative right now. I saw him yesterday saying exactly, was it yesterday, day before yesterday? Oh, people have chosen to come together using other things. He's talking about, I think, the traditional elders, Kikuyu elders going to, he says we chose ourselves, our own way, which means we chose the church and we chose the religion. For a leader to talk like that, it's not that I have any support for the fact that elders went there. And this is a tribal ethnic, it's an ethnic confederation, ethnic block building. But then he's also going on the other extreme and he's trying to say he's also a religious block building.
It's populism, like City said.
And saying that, this is a Christian country and I have no apologies. The hell with that Christianity and the Islam that you talk.
We're actually a secular country.
It's a secular country. The constitution is very clear about that. Anybody, I don't want to come here and say this is an Islamic country. Nobody else should say this is a Christian country. Nobody else should say this is a Jewish country. Nobody should say this is a Kenyan country. This is our country. We're all brothers and sisters. Anybody trying to,
So if we
a
look-
leader trying to
if
play
we look
those
at-
kind of politics.
If we look at
He is an extremely dangerous person for this country,
this
and we'll come
populism-
together here much later and talk about that. If
we
you
look-
remember when the constitution was being debated last time and he opposed the constitution, he went to Lama and he said, if this constitution is passed, there's going to be a war between Muslims and Christians. For God's sake, why?
what politicians do.
Why?
What politicians do.
No,
Not the only politician.
No
Very many
any other
politicians-
politician, any other politician has tried to use religion as a basis to divide this country and say there will be a civil war based on religion in this country. Nobody's ever done that. Look at everybody who was there. Kenyatta was there. He was a nationalist when it comes to Kenyans. You see what I mean? He is the one who allowed the Muslims to have their Eids and the rest of it. Kibaki came. Moi came, built on that. He had no problem with religion. He was an observing, very religious Christian himself of the AIC church, but respected every other denomination. Kibaki came. Excellent. Uhuru is here. Uhuru does not talk about religion at all. Now, why would his deputy come out there and say that if this constitution is passed, and 15% of the population is going to have a war with 85% of the population? Why do you seek that kind of a populism? The same way Trump is seeking populism in America by saying there are Muslims in Syria who want to kill us. So I'm going to stop them from coming in here.
But
what is the percentage
you're
of Muslims?
you're
in
drawing
this?
wrong parallels. Yeah, he was talking to a Muslim audience at that point, was he?
That, yes.
Okay. And the Muslim
He
audience.
threatened them, as a matter of fact.
And the
said,
Muslim
"No."
audience, what did they tell him?
No, they actually kept quiet, but we talked about
That's why.
ourselves,
Now
yes.
let's leave it at that. So
Yes.
coming back to the issue of the populism.
What do you tell somebody who comes and tells you that we'll come and kill you if this
Is it
constitution
that
is
they will
passed?
come and kill you or we are going to kill each other?
No, there's nothing. There's no Muslim who says that I'm going to go and kill Christians in this country.
Because we don't have the benefit of
You
actually
have your second
listening.
name called
Because
Latif,
we
and you
don't have-
said you are given that name because there was a friendship between your father and Muslim
and
Imam in that
Muslims.
place.
And people, and we've
Why
seen-
would you want anybody to bring any other
I
narrative
want
to
us
this
to
country
move away
and still
from
want to
this
become the
because
president
we
of
do
this
not
country?
have the benefit of that clip that we were saying was said by William Ruto at that
Do
point.
your research. That's what
And
media is about.
Until when we do that,
My
we
friend,
shall
when
discuss
Hitler
it.
was growing and growing and growing, there are people who are talking like you. But when he killed 6 million people, he killed 25 million people. People said, why didn't we stop him those days?
When he didn't kill them even at once,
Yes.
as you say, it was incremental.
Progressively, yes.
The point Eric, I think, is trying to put across gently is that Unfortunately, statements such as the one that you're alluding to, we tend to define.
Absolutely. We become moderates and we just say, no, it's okay.
Yes,
it
but
will
we
pass.
define politicians by them.
Yes.
Because it's politicians who come out with these outbursts.
We expect them to say things like this, and we wouldn't be surprised if the next day they've said something totally different.
Yes.
In a totally different direction.
You see, unfortunately,
There are
Mheshimiwa,
certain areas every Kenyan politician keeps away from. You don't go on inciting people along ethnic and religious lines.
Yes.
That's what every Kenyan politician throughout our history goes and to be seen for it.
And it's
For
because
you, for a
And
politician
it is because
to go on a pedestal and say
Farah
that.
Maalim, you'd like us to believe it's because politicians avoided it. That's why we ended up with people dying in 2007.
Absolutely.
Excuse us, please. Let's not even go down that route. CT, you're talking about populism, and this using this as a populist strategy to
win.
to win an election.
Votes.
you see, every politician will find a tool that they will want to win this competition, because what we're discussing here is political competition. Now, one politician chooses one tool, another one chooses another tool. Now, this is something that politicians do all the time. It doesn't matter where they come from. But in a competition, you want to win. Now, what is unfortunate with the situation that we have here is we have a little history that unfortunately sharpens our ears when it comes to utterances. And that is where, again, our constitution now becomes our support and something that we can lean on. Why this thing has become a center of discussion right now, why it has, is because of utterances. Again, utterances that were made, and it forced the government to come up and say, excuse me, folks, we are not going to be putting up with this thing. The unfortunate thing, again, with history, we've heard government coming up and saying, we're not going to put up with this. And then the very thing they say they're not going to put up with, they put up with.
Happens, yeah.
Yes. So, if we were to judge correctly, unfortunately, the hustler narrative as has been presented by us, the media, and as we have heard it and then presented it, unfortunately rings an unpleasant bell in our ears. It reminds us of, one, profiling. It doesn't matter how you look at it, it's profiling. The moment you talk about dynasties and this, you're profiling. And then it reminds us of what profiling did in 2007. It is not a path we want to go through.
Yeah.
Even if it's our imagination going wild, but it's not a path that anybody wants to go through. No.
How should then the politics for 2022 and beyond be conducted? If we talk about now issue-based politics, what would the issues be?
Manifestos, development. You promised a two-digit, what do you call, growth, economic growth.
Where is it?
10 years, where is it? You promised third year. Where is it? Where is
Account
it?
for what you've done.
What have you done? What have you done with the power that you had?
Eric, you
I
call
do
it the social contract, isn't it?
Social contract. That's
Yes.
it.
Right.
What
I
do
do
you
see
call-
that
what-
what happens here is that it seems as if the
Covenant.
Kenyan populace is being fed with two shiny things in this
Yes,
hustler
yes,
dynasty
yes,
narrative
yes.
to look at, as opposed to what they should be looking
Substantive.
at. When you talk about issue-based, for example, and things that should have been developed in this country over time that have not been developed. And so rather than people thinking towards those things for who they're going to bring into leadership and government in the next 2 years, here you are playing around with these two shiny things of dynasty hustler over time, instead of really thinking who is going to deliver for the salvation of this country.
You simplify.
Development, economic
Exactly.
growth, wealth.
But here we are
You see-
toying with these things as
You
opposed
see
to looking at the real
what
matter.
populism does, it simplifies something that could actually be explained very simply and say, what we have is an absence of opportunity for everybody. Because that's really what causes this inequality.
Simple.
An absence of inequality. But they don't go that route. They find someone to blame for that particular situation. Now, it is not difficult for you to find someone to blame, because often we don't really want to take responsibilities for some mistakes that we've made along the way.
For a very long time, when Uhuru was saying that I'm going to fight corruption in the country, everybody was looking at his deputy president. Is he going to fight his deputy president? Because Kenyans believed he's the most corrupt guy in the country. I mean, that's what the Kenyans believed. And they could be wrong, but that's an assumption that people have had. You get my point? Now, that is the social problem that ills this country and destroys the very fabric of our economic takeoff. Are we hearing those kind of narratives that we're going to stop corruption, we're going to do ABCD? we're going to use government, spend 100 billion Kenya shillings in, startups, new startups. We'll build what they call ICT centers in here, which are going to compete globally. Why is he not coming? You see,
Would those resonate with people?
absolutely,
2 years to an election.
absolutely.
They've
No. Okay. Then the whole thing.
because why I'm asking that is because look, these are promises that have been made by every politician who's seeking office. We are going to increase the number of jobs per year to 10 million jobs per year for our youth. We are going to ensure that we build roads. We are going to ensure that we grow our economy from this to that. We are going to have better management of our finances, the national level, by fighting corruption and by being lean and mean and doing everything possible. Those are words that people are used to. If you ran a campaign with that kind of narrative, would you really resonate with the people?
Who are the people who are giving those what they call promises?
Those promises? In the last election, all the candidates, let me start, Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto. I go into Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka.
No. Stop there. Kalonzo Musyoka is not in power.
He's not.
Raila is not in power.
They were
Is that-
contenders
is-
for the seat.
Is that what they were
but
using in the
hang on,
campaigns
hang
of
on, hang on a minute.
2017? Yes, that's what they were using.
Hang on a minute. They used this for all these years. They never got a chance to implement that. They were never in power.
My point exactly.
Are you getting my point?
They have-
Here is somebody that went to power and you actually voted him because he's going to make it digital.
Okay.
He's going to give what they call computers to every son
Okay,
and one
so
child.
let me use Raila and Kalonzo in 2013. Sitting prime minister, sitting vice president. That's the same narrative that they were using.
Latif.
We are going to increase the number of jobs. A prime minister who is
I pity this country because I expect the media people to do their own serious, solid research and be way ahead of everybody.
You're saying we're not.
If the media itself can be just part of that sensational thing, and all you do that is that you serve what is being cooked by other people.
Are you countering what I'm saying?
Just a moment. I'm countering what I'm saying.
All right.
I'll explain to you fully. Wait.
No. Don't counter by personalizing. Counter by fact.
No, I'm not
as well.
personalizing it because
In 2013, what was the campaign
what
that
you
you were
don't-
part
what you
of
don't
Raila and
understand.
Kalonzo?
What you don't understand is that the power rests with one person in this country,
The president.
the president.
Okay.
Hang on a minute.
And he was sharing power in
No,
2013.
no.
He was sharing power with Raila
So
Odinga.
you're saying that the sharing of power was an
Was
illusion.
a fallacy. It was an illusion. I'll explain to you why it was an illusion.
Please do.
In the treasury, you have a minister.
Yes.
You have an assistant minister.
You have a PS.
Assistant minister is nothing. The people who matter there are three people. The minister, the permanent secretary, the director of budget.
That's it.
That's it. Who was the director of budget? Nduati. Who was the minister? Who was the
Muraria?
one time Iraria, and then later it
Towards
became,
the end,
it
it was
became
Uhuru.
Kimunya, and then it became this guy who became an ambassador from Kirinyaga.
Jerundwiga.
Ndiga. No.
No, not Jerundwiga.
This guy was
All right.
ambassador in the EU. Yeah.
We know the person. His name escapes us for the moment.
Yes.
Actually, Jerundwiga.
Not in Ndiga. No. He is
Ben Gidai.
Gidai.
Not
There
Ben
you go.
Gidai.
There you go.
Gidai, Mr. Gidai. Yes.
Gidai.
Nduga is actually from Embu, if I'm not
Yes,
wrong.
it's-
Yes,
Nduga is
yes,
from
yeah. He's from Runyanges. Nduga was my colleague in parliament, one of the parliaments we were together. Those are the three guys who were there. The other person is the president. The prime minister was fighting to be given some red carpet and to have a toilet moved after with him because the moment the system decides that they don't want to give you even that,
So what you're saying?
you're zero.
So in 2013,
That's why. That's
so
why.
in 2013,
So there was no power share.
There was no incumbency.
Can I just-
Raila and Kalonzo had no incumbency at all.
There are absolutely no powers.
Then you have fallen right into what you're arguing against, Ruto.
Hang on. No.
Right now, Ruto is only a deputy president. All the power is with the president. You have. What are you arguing then?
No.
Mheshimiwa, make your point
I
clear.
pity you, and I'll tell you why I pity you.
Yes.
You don't know that Ruto was running this government for 5 good years.
As
No,
president.
we actually don't.
As president.
How is that?
As a deputy president, he shared power 50-50, not only that, but actually was running more than 70-80%. Now, if you want to deny that and say, where is it, and all those things, it's like you're living in another country, not living in Kenya. For 5 years, Ruto ran this place.
But you see, again, with us, we'll have to ask for the evidence that proves this. We could argue that he and Ruto the president and Ruto were running the country. You see, there are things that we speak of anecdotally as being the truth. But again, you will accuse us, and probably correctly, if we don't have substantive evidence, we will not speak of it as the truth.
It's difficult for you to put it
We
out
will
there.
speak of it as something that we have read, as something we have
Okay. Then when people choose not the truth, but basically the stuff, the sensationalism.
I think that
Instead of choosing the truth, then,
think the
then what
issue-
can you do? What can you do?
I think the
You
issue.
know, I
the
put
issue
in. I
comes
put
is-
in. I'm not casting aspersions in anybody. But I say the biggest problem with African democracy is the biggest problem is tolerating fools. And when I say fools, I'm talking about educated fools. You know what I mean? People who know exactly what is there,
You know,
but they will still try and spin. You remember we had
Eric, I suspect we've been referred to here.
no.
All right.
Okay.
Hang on a minute. Let me just
You know when
explain.
you
No,
have a
I'm serious.
narrative
I'm-
that is spun to fit. Whenever we saw in the 2013 election,
Yes.
for example,
Yes.
or even up to date, when there is success of the Kibaki regime, those who support Raila would put into
Pitch into that.
the Nusum Kate government really delivered for the country because
Right.
you see Raila was part of it. But when it doesn't suit it, oh no, Raila didn't have any power.
I'll tell you.
Same thing is being used
I'll tell
by
you.
same thing is being used by the Ruto Brigade. The Ruto Brigade right now would like to paint any negative thing on Uhuru, but any positive on no, it's joint. I mean, we participated in this. I mean, we were very much.
This is where
This only
and
came
this
to
is
because
where
of our
now
participation.
we have
This is
we
what-
as the media tell you politicians straight to the face and straight up. This is it. Now you can come and tell us, in behind the scenes, this is what was happening in the engine room. That is your engine room.
Latif,
As far as you're concerned, you can't tell me that you can take some success in what was happening when you were deputy speaker to Mr. Marende. And then some things that Marende did wrong, you said that was Marende. You see, me, I was just a deputy. No. You were a deputy speaker.
that is the only institution that I know of that worked in tandem day and night. Anything that happened those days was done by Marende. I'm willing to take responsibility for it. Whatever I did, he will take responsibility for it. Because we
worked
did what
together
we
very
could
well.
do.
But we saw evidence of the
Yes.
good work that was done
Absolutely.
then. There was no question about it.
Can I-
There was a sense of impartiality
Yeah.
that we
Massive
witnessed
impartiality.
that had not been witnessed hitherto.
Can-
However,
can I tell you one thing that I have never said in any interview?
Yeah.
You remember when Ababu made some tantrums and threw a lot of things on the floor of the house that Kibaki should not
And
be
he
sworn
was
in?
not swearing in the name of the president. Yeah.
that was drama, yes?
When he created that drama.
Yes.
Our party, we were in ODM. I was in ODM, Marende was in ODM. There was a narrative within a section of the party in Parliament at that time that the Speaker should give a ruling to say that he's suspending the swearing-ins because weighty matters have been raised by Ababu and we'll have a communication from the chair on Wednesday or whatever, or 2 days later or 3 days later. And me and Marende sat aside and said, is it our responsibility to determine who is an MP for a constituency? Is it our responsibility to determine who is the president of this country? No. Do we swear in presidents?
Nope.
We are not swearing in a president here. We are swearing in members of parliament. We shall be swearing in Kibaki as the MP for Odaya. A very senior member of my party that they came to me and fought me there and said, Farah, you are messing us as a party. I said, Marende, you will never do that. I said, my brother, are you willing to stand by me? I said, I'll stand by you to the end. And then you saw the kind of communication we get from there.
Fantastic.
US is to swear in the list of the MPs brought to you by the ECK from Kiwitu those days.
Yep.
And the president is there as the MP for that. We went ahead and did that. We were not pushed by party loyalty. And we had a big problem. Big problem at the party level.
Of course.
Now, what I'm trying to tell you,
We need to conclude. We need to conclude.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
what I'm trying to tell you is that Raila enjoyed very little power in the coalition government. But the beauty of the coalition government is that when one side is trying to steal and mess, the other side shouts. You know what I mean?
Or they keep quiet and both steal.
No,
Right.
no, we were always there. We were always there. You know,
Mheshimiwa.
you get my point.
Mheshimiwa, we'll ask you to stay with that for a bit so that we talk about the issue of what we expect to see in the lawyers doing today in Parliament. But let's take a break now, and taking a break at 3 minutes to 8 o'clock. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation on Spice FM and KTN Home. We have Farah Maalim, who is a leader, a deputy party leader of the Wiper Democratic Movement Party and a national politician. We're discussing a number of things. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
So as we come to the top of the hour and as we conclude this conversation, Mheshimiwa, then what would you want to see in the run-up to the 2020 general election? In about a minute. In terms of what kind of political communication would you like to see?
To see, to begin with, Kenyans have learned not to trust the promises that are made by politicians. We're still waiting for the standard one. I remember one time, Isaac Ruto said, my son was waiting for, I think he just wanted to make a humor. He said, my son refused to go to standard 2 because he's still waiting for the
For the laptop.
for the laptop or the tab, the tab which was promised for standard 1. And that time, if you remember very well, it was the digital against the analog. I mean, it's like, that's a different thing. A new narrative called the Hasara narrative has been brought into. So this business of you make promises to Kenyans, you don't deliver the promises, and then you create another narrative again and another narrative again. I think it's time Kenyans got to
Wake up.
wake up and call the bluff. Call the bluff. I don't think the people who are there can give us any difference. What we want to see right now is a blueprint. Look, we had Vision 2030. Nobody talks about Vision 2030 anymore. We have borrowed to an extent in which we will begin soon printing money ourselves. And our currency is going to take a serious hit. It will take a free fall against the dollar and all other convertible currencies. So we're actually sitting on
A ticking time bomb.
a ticking time bomb. We're sitting on a block of ice with our pants down,
Yeah.
and basically pretending that we're
That
enjoying
all is well.
We're enjoying the all is well.
Yeah.
So
Kenyans wake up. That's the message.
what I want us to say is that let's see what's going to be in the BBI,
Okay.
and if we're sure that what's going to be in the BBI is at least going to give us a semblance of a country that we don't have to worry about conflicts every 5 years. And Uhuru, now that he's on his way out, would want to leave something behind, a legacy. We want to see exactly what that's going to be. But then let's spare the real electioneering for the last 6 months.
To the point of elections.
To the point of
Let's go
election.
into the next hour. It's now 8 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Time for us to look at what's happening on the roads, and then we begin the next topic of conversation.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, the stretch on the Thika City Highway this morning is bringing quite a lot of drama. We are looking at heightened levels of traffic on the Thika Road, trying to get into the CBD today. It's a manic Monday. And the same thing is happening on Mombasa Road today, all the way from the SGR, right past Siokimau, and this heads all the way through to Cabanas, and then the JKIA turnoff this morning. It's not looking good, guys. So much traffic on both of these roads. The eastern and southern bypasses are up and ready for use, if that's any kind of consolation for you guys. And I know you might be stuck, so it might not help too much at this point. So if you didn't leave any earlier, you're likely to get into this traffic today. And the question is, what is going on at that section? The construction on the road of Mombasa Road is contributing to this quite a lot, guys. So if you're on the road wondering what's going on, that's what's happening. Other parts of the city, heading into the CBD from Langata Road or Ngong Road, is not looking too bad right now. We'll keep an eye on things. Help us out too where you can. Spice of MKE on Twitter or text us on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your
3.5 minutes after 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Spice FM, KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, www.spicefm.co.ke. And also 94.4 Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, Nyeri 90.9, Eldoret 96.7, 97.7 in Malindi. As we begin this new hour, we still have Mheshimiwa Farah Maalim with us for the next half an hour or so. C.T. Muga, just remind us today's proverb.
Every morning in Africa, a gazelle wakes up. It knows it must run faster than the fastest lion or it will be killed. Every morning, a lion wakes up. It knows it must run faster than the slowest gazelle or it will starve. Whether you are a lion or a gazelle, when the sun comes up, start running.
When the sun comes up,
Run.
take off.
Take off.
Take off. Do not just sit back. All right. Now, today is the 12th day of October. And this is the day that the Law Society of Kenya had written to everybody who could receive a letter from the LSK, basically. They have written to the Inspector General of Police, Hilary Mutyambai, speakers and clerks of the Senate and the National Assembly, notifying them of their planned protest because they plan to occupy Parliament to push for its dissolution following the advisory by the Chief Justice David Maraga. In the letter to Mutyambai, the LSK President Nelson Havi says, I refer to the advisory dated September 21st, 2020, from the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya to the President of the Republic of Kenya, that Parliament stands dissolved by operation of law on October 12, 2020, should the President of the Republic have failed to dissolve it as advised by the Chief Justice. He is adding that representatives of UN Grid Movement Kenya and the LSK will visit Parliament today at 2:30 p.m. to coordinate with the speakers modalities of securing the area from entry by parliamentarians who, effective today, will have ceased exercising delegated legislative power on behalf of Kenyans. Right? This wheel is moving. So, Chief Justice wrote his advice letter to the President. Of course, we saw the kind of reaction that got. We saw the reaction from the Speaker of the National Assembly immediately, from the Speaker of the Senate, from members of Parliament, sharply divided on what they believe, with the majority siding with the side of the Speaker that, you know what, this is not necessarily the prerogative of the National Assembly to ensure that we have the gender rule observed. The matter has now gone back to court. They're seeking interpretation of the courts. Even the Attorney General is in that mix. The Law Society of Kenya says, look, you know what? As far as we are concerned, this is a journey that we take. Effective 12th of October, cease being members of Parliament, cease exercising this delegated authority that has been given to you by the people of Kenya, who are the sovereign of the country. Go home.
Why does it not sound to me, why does it sound rather not like just one side of the story? unless I read it wrongly, what the Chief Justice, the advisory he gave, did not have an expiry date, did it?
No, he didn't.
So where has the LSK gotten the expiry date from?
You know, the other thing that you have to know, there is no a performance contract with the legislature and no performance contract with the judiciary. You cannot tell the judiciary, dispose of 500,000 cases every year.
Well, you can try.
Well, it's a target they can try and reach. Parliament they will always use that one to try and say that we have done a good job. Parliament will say we passed so many bills, we did also. But you can't have a performance, in which case then there's a punitive measure if that does not happen. The only punitive measure that you can do against Parliament is when what you call the right of recall. The right of recall.
Yes.
Now, the right of recall is exercised in two ways. One is if you can collect sufficient numbers of signatures from the constituents, then that happens on individual, not Parliament as an institution.
But
The other one, the
member
one
of
which is
Parliament.
as an institution, but individual members of Parliament. But as an institution, the right of recall is, then how do you deal with Parliament after 5 years? You can throw them out.
Right. The question comes in.
Kenyans now have the right to throw them out because they did not perform.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yes.
it's fair. So I think where all this is coming from, and I think that is the question, is that if parliamentarians, legislators have the mandate to give life to the Constitution by the making and entrenching of
Yes,
laws,
yes,
right?
yes.
And the Constitution now states very clearly just one thing about the 2/3 gender rule. That has not come into being. So essentially, what is being
How do you do it?
essentially what is being called on now, since you have not done it, the many opportunities given notwithstanding still has not come into being, then essentially you have not fulfilled your role in terms of legislating, in terms of giving life to this law. So on that alone, not even bringing other things into play, on that alone, pack and go. Essentially is what is being said here.
That's after 5 years.
Those,
Yeah.
no, okay.
Is it after 5 years?
Yeah.
Now, all of these actions
After
that are
5
being,
years,
all
throw
of
me
these
out.
actions
Yep.
that are being brought
You don't
about
like
now,
us because we've not done our job very well. But let me tell you one other thing.
but we're not talking about
This
just
is a
one. We're
constitution.
not just talking about the life of one parliament in which this has not been done.
No, let me explain to you one thing. The whole idea of setting aside a percentage of parliament for the two genders, using affirmative action for a legislative body where people are supposed to elect you, in itself was a fallacy. It was basically a vestige of what communism used to do when there was, when those early days. Allow these people, you can have an affirmative action through certain systems, and you create additional resources for minorities, women, and other people so that they can then effectively compete with the rest.
Or you have a totally different system of government other than like the one we have.
Absolutely. But to say that you must have a third of a parliament being women, and then on the other
No,
hand,
a third of parliament being of one
gender.
gender.
No, I
Let's
get
not
you,
say
I get
women.
you, I get
yeah,
you.
of one gender, Farah.
Okay, we get the meaning. We get the meaning.
So,
We get the meaning. Hang on a minute.
so
But then
we
you-
have it in the Constitution.
Listen, supposing out of the 290 members of parliament, 80% of them elect women.
Then you have to do something to ensure that you
What
meet
do
the
you-
gender
It's
role.
balanced
So what
for
do
the
you
other
do?
gender.
What do you
That
do?
is what Parliament should
This
have
is
done.
what
No,
they should have
no,
done.
no, no.
This
Then-
is
then
what
you
they
create
should have
special
done
seats
to
for women.
make it. No,
No,
That
for
is-
men.
See, this is the
That
problem.
is it. That
Because
is what-
of any gender.
That is what Parliament should have done.
When this constitution was being put in place,
I was
surely
there. Well, you know what
this
they
is
did?
why I want to ask you the question. I'm asking you.
Yeah, that's what it is. What
Did you
happened?
not see us
You were in
getting
Naivasha.
into this?
This
quagmire
where we are right now.
Because
What
we
hap- what
had
happened?
alternatives.
What happened?
We had alternatives.
We pigeonholed ourselves somewhere. I can tell you. There's no question about that. You know, What happened is that there was an element of populism,
An element.
a powerful element of populism. That element of populism had already gone far enough in saying that we're going to have women reps from every county. To then insist that a third of that has got to be from the other gender in a legislative body. You're not reinventing the wheel. Tell me the developed democracy in the world which has such a provision. Tell me one developed, including Rwanda, which is next door here, which has got a majority women.
we had an opportunity to have a different political system that would have made it easier.
Yep.
Why
And it
didn't
had
we-
been proposed even
Yes,
by
why
the
didn't we
But it was
go
re-
for that
yeah, and then
system?
it was
What
rejected.
happened? The team that went to
Naivasha.
Naivasha messed us. The COE had come with a different thing altogether. That provision was not there with the COE. And then when it was brought to the parliament, they said for an article, we demanded for 157 amendments. But none of them saw the light of the day, even to be debated on the floor of the House, because you have to have a 2/3 majority
Yep.
for that matter to be debated on the floor of the House. So every amendment that was shot down because it couldn't get another 2/3 majority. So essentially what was done by the Naivasha, the team, and then of course written by the COE, is what just passed without any debate altogether, without any amendments, without changing a comma.
Okay.
Okay, they said because we've been trying to have a constitution in this country all these years and rewrite our constitution, we've never been able to do that. So let's create an impossibility right now. Let the experts do it. When the experts bring us, let it be impossible for us to change it. It's a good idea. But then what happened? The Naivasha group went and changed what the experts had put in place.
Huh? And the Naivasha group, we have got to be very clear, is a political class.
So the political class that did us a lot of disservice.
Okay.
I fought very hard against it myself, but of course,
And then it came to the
there were
assembly.
politics being played.
Obviously.
Many,
And-
many of those ones who wanted to bring the, house, the upper house, denied Senate from becoming an upper house, ended up running for the upper house eventually.
and then they found out that the upper house is actually
And
now
then
a
they
junior
found there's no
house.
power in the upper house, then they rent to the governors. You know what I mean?
So here we are, the mischief that was happening in 2010 in Naivasha and coming into the National Assembly and going through the country with the campaigns for or against the Constitution of Kenya 2010 is coming to bite the political class right where it should be biting them.
Absolutely.
So why is it then that we should now look back and say, it can't happen? If it can happen, Parliament has had opportunity for the last
Ample.
10 years
Ample.
to go around the country the same way they went around the country campaigning for the Constitution, to go around the country and say, you know what, there's this...
Tunatembea safari.
Tunatembea safari, usijali, kwa sababu Mungu ameamua. Sasa, when we had 10
Sasa
years...
Mungu ni wewe yako peke yako, Mungu si
Ngoja
wetu.
bwana, tuendelee na historia yetu, achana na wengine. In the last 10 years, members of parliament did not rise up to the occasion and go around the country telling people, you know what, I think the original proposal that we had received from the experts could have helped us. Can we even contemplate just going to a referendum to change this so that we can achieve what we want to achieve in the
That's what BBI is
Constitution?
about.
10 years down the road.
Yes.
10 years down the road, in that same time, there's a provision in the Constitution that allows people to go to court and say, this parliament has not enacted a law that is supposed to help us implement this Constitution.
You know what I have told you from the beginning? Certain provisions of the Constitution contradict certain other provisions of the Constitution. Now, which one takes a precedence over the other is a matter for jurists to deal with.
Yes, and so
I
far,
have an idea.
and so
which
far,
one
up
should-
to now,
matters in the Bill of Rights, matters of power itself, all those ones should take.
but on this
precedence
particular
over that.
issue, Mheshimiwa, we haven't seen any court or any judge or magistrate rule in that other way. Every time the matter is taken to court,
because technically,
it goes to court.
Technically,
Judges say yes, Parliament should do this. In fact, then we ask
There were
that
a series
Parliament
of rulings.
passes this within X.
technically, philosophically speaking, looking at the traditions of lawmaking and democracies and looking at, see, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're looking at all empirical, we are looking at precedents. Nobody can stop Parliament from playing its role as a legislative body, including the court. The court cannot direct. Parliament can do its business to the extent of
Even
enacting an unconstitutional law.
I mean, they can get to the point
Hang on a
of,
minute.
of even breaking the law.
Breaking the
themselves.
law and breaking the provisions, the supreme law, which is the constitution, and enacting an unconstitutional statute. All that the courts can do is that when that matter comes before the court, they strike it down. But they cannot. They don't have the powers
They
to
can't
stop.
stop.
They can't. They don't have the powers to stop Parliament from doing that role.
So essentially, we're dealing here with
Yes,
two issues:
yes.
facts and the truth.
Yes,
The facts are Parliament,
cannot be forced. They cannot be stopped.
fact.
Yes,
Truth, Parliament can do whatsoever they like.
Yes.
Even when that encompasses not doing their job.
Even when it means trampling on your very rights.
And doing nothing. Like if they do nothing, you can only throw them out when the 5 years is over. What can you do? What I do?
Now,
What do these
But
young,
with- but
the
with-
young
but-
people say?
Utadu.
Utadu, eh?
You see, that's why we had that context. If you
Yes.
look at our journey towards the 2010 constitution,
Yes.
after 2008, with the signing of the Peace and Reconciliation Accord, the National Peace and Reconciliation Accord,
yes, the peace treaty.
the peace treaty, one of the things that were discussed was we have tried and failed to give ourselves a new constitution. This time, we have to try and we have to ensure that we do not fail. We have to, if it fails, it is the people who will reject it. And that is why, and you are there in that parliament, that's why you came up with a law that had timelines
Absolutely.
and self-executing timelines, because they understood the political class can play games again, like had happened before. That's why there was a time by which the committee of experts had to give us their report. There's a time by which we had to go to a referendum. There's a time after a referendum. If it's yes, there's the time by which we must
Operationalize
promulgate
the constitution.
The constitution.
How to
And then
operationalize,
the
yeah.
constitution itself has timelines within which we must bring in the laws to bring this constitution to life. You see all these timelines. Context is understanding the mischief of the political class.
The problem
Now, this is
yes,
one of those
yes,
that is
yes,
now playing
yes,
out
yes.
right here in front of everybody,
Yeah.
because it was assumed that the political class would then now be able to go and think hard and think and use taxpayers' money in whatever form to come up with a solution. This is our ideal.
This is the this
As
is,
our elected leaders, give us the way forward on how we can get this ideal. Here we are.
any you see. Let's assume, for argument's sake, you say that Parliament is going to enact a law that operationalizes the 2/3 or the 1/3 doctrine. You run counter to the salient, sanctified provisions of the Bill of Rights. You have a problem dealing with, you have to wait until the elections are conducted, and when the elections are conducted, you look at the side that had less than a third, and then to formulate a system that is going to bring in that additional numbers will be a problem, because the numbers of the parliament itself is there. It's 290 constituencies. It's 47 what you call there, and then there's a limited number of other areas to be nominated. So if you have to create that provision, a piece of legislation that is going to operationalize that, you must then make a certain amendment to the constitution also to also define that one. It's not anchored in constitution. It only says 1/3.
Yep.
And then it runs counter to the other provisions of the Bill of Rights that says nobody can be discriminated on account
basis
of
of gender.
ABCD, BASI, and all those.
Yep.
Somebody's going to immediately go to court and say, look, we all ran for elections. It's not my fault that they failed to impress the voters to get the 1/3 that essentially they think they should have. Why should that be used against me? He remembers, I think. I don't think the two of you can remember unless you read about it later. There's what's called an affirmative action through quota system in the US, which has been in practice right from the civil rights days. There was an aeronautical engineer called Blake, if my memory serves me right, wanted to train as a doctor, but he couldn't train as a doctor. But the points he had, there were African Americans who were able to train as doctors with those points. They said, this is only allowed to the African Americans through the quota systems. And he said, why should I be discriminated against? Why would I have a problem with what a great-grandfather of mine did, or what another fellow white race did in terms of slavery
It
and the
wasn't
rest?
his fault that he was white.
It was not my fault that I was white. So if I was a black child, I would have made it into medical school. And the Supreme Court ruled in favor. Listen to it. The man is, I don't know if he's still alive, But he started studying medicine at the age of 38. I doubt if he's still alive. If he's alive, he must be in his late 80s or early 90s. But he started studying medicine at the age of 38. I'm sorry, maybe you're right, about 70s.
What you're referring to is
What I'm saying basically is that, then this will run counter to the Bill of Rights in here.
it's reverse discrimination.
It's reverse discrimination.
Okay.
And then in any case, it says a meritocracy. We have a provision in the Constitution that says everything has got to be done on meritocracy. That if you you're recruiting a doctor, you don't have to necessarily recruit a doctor because he is from a certain ethnic background or certain other things. It has to be a clean
they're
race
qualified
for
as
all
doctors.
Kenyans, and the winner, the best, may the best person win.
Yes.
The best man or the best woman win.
With all those arguments, Mheshimiwa.
So it's not an easy thing. So what we needed to do, before we got to that, there should have been a serious debate on that. If you ask me, you create an affirmative action by supporting women, minorities, and the rest of them so that they have a head start over the others.
But which there's a simpler way.
Yeah.
The simpler way was just have a political system
Yes.
that has within it
Yes.
a mechanism for doing that.
Yes.
So all this drama that we're being treated to now is done away with.
Yeah, because then the constituencies are there. And
Yes.
if the constituencies are there, why would you want to force Lagdera to either
elect.
choose a man or a woman as the MP?
Or
You get my
let the
point?
political parties make that decision.
So why haven't we seen?
Or else we go to a system like he says. Let's change the whole system.
Yes.
We have what you call a majoritarian system or the proportional representation system,
Yes.
in which you only go and vote for a party.
So if
Yes.
these options are
So
available,
when you vote for a party,
Why haven't we seen
if
these options being
are
brought to the
available,
table
then why
in
have
10
they
years?
not been brought to the table over this long period of time? It just seems that nobody has been willing, because you can talk about the provisions being there. You can talk about the laws and all these technical things that we're bringing to the table now being provided for. But the will, which I think is a very key ingredient, has not been applied to any of these discussions over the last 10 years.
If-
Why has that never happened?
No, if you're a
Why has that
majority
never happened?
and you're male and the system favors you, why would you want to change it?
Well, that's exactly where I'm headed to. So it goes beyond all of these technicalities, and it goes towards the will. Why would you want to essentially cede power
you see,
to another
there's-
side?
Because
there's
That's
it
the
was
problem.
not impossible, just like
Look,
you're
it's
saying.
not
Mheshimiwa.
impossible,
It's not
Farah.
it's not impossible, I can tell you. It's not impossible. But you see, we talk as nationalists and as patriots, as Kenyans. Well, when you go back again, you want to see how many of those people who are going to make it to that list are from Garissa, how many are from Nyeri.
Yes.
That's why we have this issue of gerrymandering and the way our own census was cooked in the last election. How do you have a constituency that has got 35,000, voters, and 60,000 people, students, people is going to school, and you have 30,000 as the population?
That's political arithmetic.
And then, of course, they come to the issue of the Senate right now, take money from
Same.
Garissa, take money from Wajir, take money from there. For God's sake, we have seen this before. When Central Kenya, which was where our first president came from, was being developed more than any other. And at the same time, the late Jomo Kenyatta created the Harambee for Gatundu Hospital. So everybody who comes to him there will bring a check for Gatundu Hospital. So not only did they take all the resources to his own backyard, but again here we are contributing from Garissa. Just let me finish.
That's stretching it.
Let me finish. We are contributing all the way from Garissa, from our small money, and from Busia and Mumias and the rest of it. Kwenda kupeleka tera, we have a saying in our language that one time the cat animals were trying to share loot. They killed an animal, and then the hyena was told, now you share this, you are good at sharing. So he cut the thing into half, and then said, this half belongs to the king, and the other half
For sharing.
is for the rest of us. And he got a big slap, serious slap from the king. And there he was, literally writhing in pain. He was told, now this man does not know how to share. This hyena has not known how to share. Fox, you share this now. Now the fox sees the hyena, sees the lion. She says, this thing has to be in two halves. This half is for the king. And the other half, tuongezee king pia.
Time for us to take a break.
That's what Somali saying. You know what I mean? So when you hear all this talk of what do you call sharing in revenue sharing and everything else, ni kupeleka tu kwa
King and king.
king and king. You know what I mean?
Let's end it there. Mheshimiwa. 26 minutes after 8. Thank you very much for joining us today. Join us again. I know we have to let you leave. Asante sana for joining us today for Amali. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. 27 minutes after 8, broadcasting on Spice FM, online and on KTA Home. Let's take a break and we'll be back. Continue the conversation. So open up the phone line 0719-012-600. What is it that you think about this move by the Law Society of Kenya to go and occupy Parliament today, insisting that members of Parliament cease being members of Parliament from today? Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. The weather with Spice FM.
All right, partly high conditions in Nairobi today, 18 degrees at a warm to high of 28 today. Sunny conditions in Nyeri at 18, going to highs of 26 and lows of 13 with a chance of rains later. It'll also be a wet afternoon in Nakuru, currently partly cloudy conditions at 17. Eldoret is mostly cloudy at 16 degrees, going to highs of 21 and a chance of rains later. Kisumu might also have some rains in the afternoon with highs of 27 and lows of 19. And that's what it is in Kakamega. Partly cloudy at 19 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 16. Also looking at a chance of rain in the afternoon. Mombasa will go to a high of 30 today. Currently partly cloudy conditions at 27. 27 degrees is what it is in Malindi at the moment. Sunny conditions to last through the day, going to highs of 30 and lows of 25. It's mostly cloudy in Kampala at 21. Highs of 26 and lows of 19. Partly cloudy conditions in Dar es Salaam at 27, going to highs of 30 and lows of 24 with thunderstorms forecasted for the afternoon. Joburg is cloudy at 10 degrees, highs of 16 and lows of 9. And finally for now in Lagos, it's partly cloudy at 31. That will be the high for the day, coming down to lows of 24.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic.
Drama that is already traffic this morning at the Donholm roundabout. Unfortunately, an accident has occurred involving a truck, and police are yet to be on the scene to sort that out. So if you're going in that direction or coming into that area, just know that that's what is up ahead. We still have the bumper-to-bumper situation on Mombasa Road right around the Gateway Mall. It is bumper-to-bumper, all jam and no butter, guys. Sorry this morning. Also on Thika Road, trying to get into at least to the Pangani underpass, where you can either then split to Moranga Road or split to Forest Road. it's jam-packed and it's not happening, unfortunately. Still, even at 8:30, bumper to bumper. So this one is one for the books this Monday. So let's see what it looks like in a half hour or so. Into the CBD, there is also no movement between Uhuru Highway and all the way to Westlands. Well, okay, a little bit of movement. Let's see what it looks like in a short while. Shout out. Let us know what you see. If you're stuck, Spice of MKE on Twitter or 40127. Text us.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
We have Farah Alim, who is the Wiper Democratic Movement Party Deputy Party Leader, and you have a message to the Wiper fraternity.
Thank you, Latif. This is to the Wiper fraternity and the nation at large. I'm sending my deepest condolences to the family of Salim Bajabir, who passed on yesterday. He was a stalwart and a party leader in Mombasa, somebody who is going to be missed a lot by both the party and the community and the nation at large. And we lost him yesterday, and it's my deepest condolences to the family and the fraternity, as well as all Kenyans who know him. He was an amazing person. He's a fantastic character. He actually hosted all of us, including the party leader, almost 100 of us, for lunch when we had the party's week in the coast some 2 weeks back. So we had a sudden. He succumbed very, very fast. He was not sick before that, and he's going to be buried today in Mombasa. I'll try and be there also, and my deepest condolences to him and the family, to the family and all people who know him.
Oh, sincere condolences as well go to the family of the late Salim Bajaber and the Wiper fraternity and all people who associated with him in Mombasa, in other business circles as well. Asante sana for sharing that information with us, and we wish you all the best as you travel to Mombasa.
Thank you.
So this is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation as we say goodbye to Mheshimiwa Farah Maalim, who's been with us since 7 a.m. We continue this conversation. This is what is expected to happen in Parliament at 2:30 p.m. today, according to the Law Society of Kenya, whose President Nelson Havi says they want to go to Parliament this afternoon. They want to have a meeting with the speakers of the Senate and the National Assembly to look at modalities of securing the area from entry by parliamentarians who, according to the LSK, effective today, will have ceased exercising delegated legislative powers on behalf of Kenyans. Now, this is something that the LSK had issued notice over a couple of weeks back and said, come the 12th, as far as we are concerned, our interpretation of what is happening now, since the advice that was given by the Chief Justice to the President, since that was given out, this is what we understand. If the President does not take action, as far as we are concerned, this action comes into effect automatically from the 12th day of October 2020. So we know that this matter is, of course, back in court and for interpretation and all. But today what we want to ask is whether you support and agree with this move by the Law Society of Kenya to push this idea to where they're pushing it, saying that they want to have this conversation with the speakers, saying that as far as they're concerned, they cease to recognize MPs and senators and women reps as duly elected, and whether they serve in the National Assembly or in the Senate, and whether they should then leave. This is what we want you to tell us. 0719-012-600 or SMS 40127. Or also you can tweet us, Spice FM KE, or post a comment on Facebook, Spice FM KE, or on Instagram as well, Spice FM KE. What do you think, City?
Well, in such matters, I say the same thing. We have a ringside seat in trying to understand how the laws of this country actually function. The facts, as they have been stated, we've understood. Now we want to look at the truth. What can the LSK actually do? That's the proof of the pudding. And what will they do? And then what will they achieve? This is something that is good to observe and to see. Our understanding of this constitution and our laws are being expanded with every passing day. At least mine is.
Well, that's for sure. And I think that even those who are in the practice then of legislating members of parliament, it would become very clear that they wouldn't also know what to do. We can shroud it in all kinds of philosophy and throw many big words at it. But I would say that there's a pretty number of legislators now who are sitting at this point and actually throwing their hands up and saying, okay, so exactly what would happen in a case like this? Exactly what would occur? So I think that it is good when you have this kind of agitation. It is good when you have something like this, because then it'll iron out many issues that have been long bedeviling this country when it comes to laws and their making. True, we don't know what's going to happen this afternoon, unless you're a soothsayer. You don't know what is going to occur. But it is clear that, there are certain rights here that are being exercised, and they have the right to do this, should they choose.
And the political lifespan of our politicians has also been brought right before their eyes for them to face up to. They are not immortal. The possibility that they thought was an impossibility is now confronting them. The likelihood of them absolutely going home exists. It's a reality. It's not a fairy tale. It's not an academic discussion. It is a reality. Now, this is where it's a fact which actually lends itself to the truth. And if I were in their position, it would not be a pleasant prospect. Because this is one of those situations where it is not as though MP so-and-so and so-and-so go home. It's everybody goes home.
Right.
Everyone.
To the ground, and we start from scratch.
And of interest, among the parliamentarians themselves, there are people who support it and say, yes, indeed. Bring this thing to a grinding halt so that we can start all over again.
What I'd be interested to know is whether the majority of the membership of the Law Society of Kenya actually supports what the LSK president and his council are pushing.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Whether they actually do support this agenda, whether they feel that what the LSK president is doing represents what they stand for. I'd be interested to know, because when LSK president was campaigning and he got the election as the president of the Law Society of Kenya, he went with this mantra of a brave new bar. He was saying that, we've gotten to a point where the Law Society of Kenya has, taken a very, very big backseat on matters of governance, on matters of upholding the rule of law, on matters of fighting corruption, on matters of speaking out against the ills in our society. And we need to change that. We need to be in the front row of fighting for betterment of governance in this country. This is one of those. The LSK was enjoined, of course, in the cases that have gone to court on this issue of gender. The LSK now was very vocal and instrumental. Immediately after the Chief Justice wrote his letter to the President, the LSK was among the first to react and say, yes, we support what the Chief Justice has done, and we expect the President to do this. And if he doesn't, we shall then mobilize the country to this cause. They are staying the cause, the LSK President and his council. Do the other lawyers agree with him? Are there dissenting voices within the LSK that feel maybe the approach should be different?
I believe they will
maybe
be
now that
dissenting
we have
voices.
gone to court.
Yes.
Maybe, Mr. Harvey, maybe you should wait until we see the interpretation of the court. Maybe we should allow this thing to go back to where our arena is, which is the courts, and arguing this case out in court.
There has to be dissenting voices. The issue here is not whether they exist, but in what numbers do they exist?
Yes.
Sure, and if there are dissenting voices, it only lends credence to the belief of the LSK president himself, who's always said that there has been a meekish approach to issues by quite a large percentage of the legal fraternity. So if there are dissenting voices, then it just lends to that belief even further. That all right, this that we're doing, if you dissent, it essentially means that you've taken that meek and lowly approach, and you're not ready to deal with issues head on. Because if you want to look at the facts, the fact is that this part of the Constitution, which has been insisted it be brought to life through the elements of law, has not happened. Has there been ample time that has been given for it to happen? Yes, there has. Have there been provisions by the same court that they're looking to interpret it now said, go ahead and do this? Yes. From Justice Mumbi Ngugi to all her other colleagues saying, go ahead and do this. We have made provision for. Please now, you who have the mandate to do this, Please, go ahead. Not once, not twice, not thrice. They've had ample opportunity to even say, all right, the way the law and how it has been put together does not work. Can we go ahead and change it? Before it became entrenched, it never happened. So if you want to look at the facts, it seems quite late in the game for anybody to say, wait and hold on. Wait and hold on. For how long? Anybody who says, give us a little bit more time, the argument can then be thrown at you to then say, well, you had all this time previously. What did you do with it? And if you want to look at the wider picture, the bigger picture, to say that if this thing that seems like a small tick on a dog is able to dissolve parliament because they actually did not do it, how many more things are lurking in the shadows that you've not been able to read or interpret because it's the law that seems so philosophical? How many things are happening that actually could be of detriment to this country or are not happening that could be solved by the dissolution of parliament? And that brings in the question. There could be many other things that are not happening, that what we need to do to get people moving is to dissolve parliament and then get people to, in this case, yes, shake your tail feathers and say, okay, it's time for us to actually get this job done.
Today and tails. If I were to consider what our guest Farah Malim told us, there is no institution in this country where impunity resides more than Parliament. They actually did not believe anything of this sort could happen to them.
No.
They did not. So everything that we're talking about, from just almost getting the numbers to not getting the numbers to walking out to being absent, this is not something they took very seriously.
No.
Because we have seen our parliament taking things seriously, like raising what they earn. We've seen how seriously they take it, and we've seen the speed with which they have moved.
So you already know that if they wanted to get something done,
They would have done it.
would have done it.
They would
so
have.
it is very clear that some things that have taken 10 years, are you kidding? For things that have taken so long, if you really want, because you had all the instruments, you had all the vehicles, you had the tools, you had the channels, you could have done it, but you chose, and I picked that word intentionally, you chose not to, because your inaction now points to a choice that you have made. Like you said, other things that would have benefited you, you went ahead and did them. So like it looked like a very small thing. We're going to go ahead and dissolve parliament over something like this that we could have sorted. Absolutely, yes. Yes, because you had an opportunity and you failed.
That's all okay. But do you support the move by the LSK to go and occupy Parliament?
I don't know that that's going to get any results, to be honest.
But do you support their intention to go and do that?
You're asking me that question? Oh, by all means, let them.
If I don't know, it's going to garner any kind of result today, but it will send shockwave. It will send a message.
Are
And
they
if you try
breaking
to
the
do
law?
No.
Is it something that they are allowed to do?
Have they given notice of their intent?
Yes.
They have. To all the relevant arms and bodies, they have given notice of their intent. If it is something that is going to send shockwaves or maybe jolt people into acting even more, why not?
You see,
Why not?
prior to them issuing whatever notice and then giving us a breakdown of what they intend to do, I didn't know such a thing could be done.
Could actually be done, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we now know there's a possibility. So what I'm saying is, let us see how far this possibility goes. It's important. Because what is for sure, those who are now supposedly under threat, I don't think we look at this same issue in the same academic matter we're looking at it as. Because it could mean that your job could come to an end.
Yeah. So anybody else who wants to sit in a position and think that which you have been given the responsibility over, that you can pussyfoot around it and not make a definitive decision going forward, you're going to think twice.
Yes.
Because the possibility that you would lose your job tomorrow then becomes very real. And then you say, you know what, actually, not just because I could lose my job, but because I have been given this responsibility, let me expend my duties according to that responsibility that has been given to me. You would do it. You would.
But there's also the consideration, remember, of those aspiring to these lofty positions.
Who would say dissolve quickly so we can come in.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's brought into play all manner of interesting things. But also those who are perhaps cautionary and a little more, who give perspective to situations, would think perhaps one needs to be a little more careful about wanting to attain this particular office. Because people vie for these positions based on what is current. And what was current prior to this was that when you are in this position, you are unassailable. 5 years guaranteed. We suddenly have a situation where that guarantee out of the window. Eric, you are looking at me as though I am saying something you don't particularly believe in. Why?
No, it's not that I don't believe in what you're saying. All I'm just looking at is when the Law Society comes and says what we want to push is we want to push for this Occupy Parliament. Of course, they want to have the support of the wider community, not just this organization called the United Green Movement, but also other civil society organizations, other citizens who would like to go and participate in this protest. Basically, they are calling for a protest to go and camp at Parliament and remind both the President, the speakers, and the members of Parliament that you ought to be taking action. Action to the President is you ought to be heeding the advice by the Chief Justice. Action to the members of Parliament, including their speakers, is you failed in delivering what was expected to have been delivered. And then you ought to be going home. So you've both said you're not sure what the result of this would be, but then what's the impact of calling for this demonstration at this point? Should they, knowing full well that there is a matter that is being canvassed in court, should they not wait for that? Should you not say, all right, so yes, this has come in, and following due process, they've gone to court to seek interpretation. And the interpretation here is being sought on what does that mean? Does it mean, A, that if we dissolve, then we are having a general election? Does it mean that if we dissolve, we're having a by-election, which means that the new members of Parliament will only serve for until August 2022? What does it mean in terms of the calendar of Parliament going forward? All those interpretations, should we not wait for all that
Sure, but I
to
think
be canvassed, and then we say now, because we have reached where we have clarity going forward, then we can now dissolve Parliament?
I would want to come from the point that they understand that all of these explanations will be made as you go along. However, what this move does today doesn't guarantee you any results, much more than it sends a message, right? And I believe that is the route that they're taking with this. That there's a message that's being sent that basically we're not going to allow this kind of lackluster behavior, especially when it comes to the legislative arm of this government. That you will not allow people to continue just sitting around doing whatever it is that they please at whichever turn. So I don't think that you expect, because they're going to occupy Parliament today, that you will see a result today at 3:45 p.m.
Not necessarily.
As opposed to sending a message to saying that, yes, we know that as you decide whatever it is that you're going to decide, we are not taking this sitting down. And that would be what we hope that the rest of the people in the country would also adopt in terms of a feeling.
But you see, the premise of their protest here is not to remind members of Parliament. The premise of their protest is to say that as far as we are concerned, from tomorrow, this Parliament is illegal.
Yeah,
It's
sure, sending a
illegitimate.
message that we're serious.
It is
that
not
we're
just
serious-
sending a message. It's
we're
basically
serious
saying
about it
that
today.
Parliament should stop working.
Exactly. So it was not a suggestion when we talked about it 21 days ago. It was not a suggestion. We were serious.
And it is
then
not-
today, come day 20, whatever, we are saying here we are to remind you
That in our interpretation of the law, you cease to exist.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. As people who are officers of the court, as people who are judicial officers, should they not be following due process and see, so what is that interpretation? Should they actually not even be going and asking the court to interpret and make it clear, is there a timeline? Because this is Nelson Harvey and his team who have determined that it is 21 days. Where is this 21 days coming from? There are those that are arguing that there is not 21 days. Should they not just be enjoining that
Would
and
this thing not
saying,
have been much simpler if the president, because these matters were thrown at his doorstep, if I remember correctly,
Yes.
and for him to decide, okay? Now, the decision could either be, Parliament, please give me reason as to why I shouldn't dissolve you, or just dissolve. He does have those powers, does he not? Unless, of course, I misunderstood this thing completely.
No.
Because
It rests with him at the end
yes,
of the day.
with that action, the drama would be to see how quickly the MPs can scamper in either A, trying to figure out what to do or how to change this, or simply start preparing for the exit. But I don't see a situation where the president tells them to go home. I don't see it.
At 10 minutes to 9 o'clock, this is Kenya's biggest conversation. We'll soon be saying goodbye to our audience on KTN Home and continue with this conversation on Spice FM and online. We were talking about lactose intolerance, and CT, we're We talked about, so lactose is this milk that's sugar that is in milk.
It is specifically in dairy products, specifically, right? That's lactose intolerance, right? And we said it's because there's an absence of a certain enzyme called lactase in one system. There are people who have that particular situation. And I threw in the issue of diabetes because when you talk about sugar, people's mind immediately go to diabetes because this is what they're accustomed to. Diabetes is quite different. That is now your body not being able to break down carbohydrates. Now, carbohydrates also have sugar, okay? Or, that's one. Two, your body not producing sufficient insulin that is actually required for this particular breakdown. That is why people who are diabetes get an injection of insulin or have something that provides that backup that the body requires for it to do what it's supposed to do. Yes.
Very many people in this country, actually, very many people globally are lactose intolerant. Some studies have said up to 70% of the global population has some sort of lactose
Some form
intolerance.
of it, yes.
A new study that's been quoted by the new KCC says about 40% of Kenyans have presented themselves with lactose intolerance, right? And of course, it presents itself in various ways. Let's speak to one of them, who is Lisa in Dagoretti. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning.
We thank you very much for speaking to us right here on Spice FM. This is a Situation Room.
Okay.
Give us your experience on with lactose intolerance.
My experience have been when I got to around 40 years, that's when the situation really got worse. You know, like when I take milk tea at friends' places or I just take milk. I used to really enjoy drinking milk. But as I got a bit older, when I started drinking milk, I just got really bloated. And then I'll get a lot of gas in my stomach and the cramping. And then sometimes it depends on the amount of milk that I drink. If I drink too much of it, then I'll even have a diarrhea.
Yeah.
So it will be really bad. And then
when did you realize that what you're actually suffering from is lactose intolerance?
What I did is I went to the doctor. Yeah, and then he actually diagnosed me with, having the problem with lactose intolerant. Because I'll get it whenever even I'll eat pizza or cheese,
All right. So, Lisa, you've heard about this new product by New KCC, the Gold Crown lactose-free milk.
Yes.
Have you used it?
I've been using it actually, and I usually buy it at the supermarket because you can't find it in the kiosk. So I've been really enjoying my milk journey, enjoying drinking milk and not having any stomach issues.
So you can now actually take milk. I'm lactose intolerant.
I take milk straight from the packet. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Does it taste differently?
It actually tastes very rich. It's like whole milk, the original Gold Crown taste. Yeah, it has that taste. Very good taste, actually.
So it's milk.
It's milk.
So it's
not
just milk.
Yeah,
it's not brown
milk. Yeah, it's not soya milk.
Yellow
it's
milk.
Milk. Yeah, it's just milk. And the color is milk.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience with us, Lisa. And also, there are very many people who are lactose intolerant. Like I said, I discovered same thing. Age, get to a certain point. I don't know. There are some people who grow old and they don't get it. Look at CT. Look at me. I mean, you'd think that City would be the one complaining. It is me who's complaining about this issue.
I have other things to complain about.
Thank you very much, Lisa, for speaking to us.
You're welcome.
Asante for sharing your experience. Well, you can get this Gold Crown lactose-free milk from New KCC. Just go to Naivas, Carrefour, Quickmart, Ketias, and Chandarana outlets across the country. And you'll be able to take advantage of these offers. So, what? Carrefour.
All
right.
That's okay. Got you.
All right.
Pronounced the way you pronounce it. Huh?
Mm.
Okay.
Naivas.
That one, clear.
Carrefour.
Wow.
Okay, now I
Quick
understand.
Mart.
Quick Mart's straightforward.
Ketias, Khetia, Ketias,
Okay.
and Chandarana.
Okay.
Go anywhere across the country. Buy a 1 UHT or Gold Crown value pack, and you get a liter lactose-free pack. If you buy the carton of 12 pieces of the lactose-free half a liter pack, you get 2 pieces of the lactose-free 500 ml pack. Just to appreciate your precious time, we'd also like to award some of our listeners today with this. What we want you to do is go onto our social media handles, SpiceFMKE on Facebook or on Twitter, and you tell us your lactose experience, how you react to lactose. And then our man on social media, Mr. Brian Amolioto, will pick one winner. And we'll get in touch with the winner who gets this Gold Crown lactose-free milk from the new KCC. It is interesting to hear this because, I mean, like I've said, got to a certain point I realized this milk thing, just 2 sips of milk tea, and my stomach starts.
And you're done.
It starts talking.
It's just guggling.
Could be a thing for you.
It's just telling stories in front of everybody else, and my stomach is one that is like, taking the audio.
And it's telling the story loudly.
Yeah, loudly. There's a speaker who starts saying, Ati?
Shameless stomach.
Ati unasema nini? We'll tell you more about this, so just get onto our social media handles and tell us about your lactose experience, and we see the story that Brian Amolioto likes with the support of CT Muga. We'll get to win a good pack from new KCC. Okay, so as we conclude this conversation, 2:30 p.m. today, we watch out for
Parliament and what's going to happen there. I mean, the speculation is rife in terms of will they actually be allowed into Parliament buildings and things like this. Although they gave the notice of intent, it doesn't mean that security agencies are going to welcome them with open arms. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this afternoon. As far as the LSK is concerned and the president, they're coming out with all guns blazing and not going to allow this to happen. However, they've chosen to interpret all of this within their purview. They're not operating outside of the law. It'll be interesting to see what the other side then has to offer in terms of an answer. But it's going to be an interesting Monday.
It is. Outlaw says on Twitter, it won't work, and they all know it themselves. Makes you think Nelson Harvey is someone's puppet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perspective.
Arnold Ondigo says, no, madness though. Total publicity and PR exercise by the LSK.
Does something for the LSK, does it?
Yes, it does. But also remember, in the absence of the efforts they're making, will we really know the full extent to which this particular matter can be tackled? The answer is
Absolutely
no.
not.
No.
So let them.
They'll push
Even
this
what's
agenda.
happening now, nobody knew that it could happen, right? Or nobody was, awake to the reality that this could happen in the manner in which it's unfolding now. So by the end of this afternoon, you'll be privy to even more things that you didn't know could have happened, that would have happened.
All right.
So-
Coming up to 9 o'clock, this is Kenya's biggest conversation. In the next hour, we move the conversation to West Africa and to Nigeria, where there are protests in Nigeria, so called #EndSARS, SARS. Good morning.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay, so Mombasa Road is still giving up those vibes, guys. It's quite busy still. It's going to take you some time to get into the CBD if that's where you're going. If you turn off right at the entry to the Southern Bypass, you'll be fine then trying to use that as an option to get into town. It'll be a bit longer, granted, but you won't be stuck in the bumper-to-bumper traffic. Okay, so still eye on Mombasa Road, still an eye on Thika Road as we're trying to get into the CBD. We will have a slower entry into the city today. Jogo Road, guys, unfortunately is a mess, moving very slowly as you try to get to the City Stadium roundabout and then into the city from there. Getting into the CBD also from Huru Highway then towards Westlands, you're going to get in with some trouble. We're still in the middle of traffic hour for this Monday. It's probably going to take us well into 9:30. So let's see what it looks like in a short while. If you're stuck, or if you find an alternate route for people who've been in traffic for the last 2 hours, let us know. Spice FMKE on Twitter, or text us on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room. The
2.5 minutes after 9, Kenya's biggest conversation continues, now moving into Africa's biggest conversation, because we want to see what's happening in the West African country of Nigeria. Okay. So, police brutality is not just a catchphrase that's used in Kenya. Police brutality is used globally. And in the recent past, we've seen demonstrations about police brutality in this country. For example, we've seen demonstrations against a certain section or unit of police over many years. For example, just towards the end of last year, the DCI had to dissolve some police unit because of outcry from the public. Flying Squad and the Special Crimes Prevention Unit, they were done away with. And this is because of the outcry from the public, people saying, for example, Flying Squad and what they do, how they operate and all. And the DCI wanted now to bring in a new unit that would be able to have fresher mandates, but also have a different focus on how they operate. So police units that deal with specialized areas, this is common everywhere in the world. You'll have in the police service a unit that only deals with narcotics. In the police service in this country, we have a narcotics unit. We have an anti-stock theft unit.
White-collar crime.
We have a white-collar crime unit. We have, like that one. That
Tourist
called,
police.
Tourist police, diplomatic police. All these units. And we have units that are formed, crack squads that are formed to deal with a specific menace for a certain period of time. And then their mandate is over, it's dissolved. Now, we have seen this kind of protest coming out of Nigeria. Why are people demonstrating in Nigeria?
Well, okay, so you have SARS. What is SARS? And SARS is the, what you want to call the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. And this is a section of police that was basically set up many, many years ago to basically deal with robbery, because robbery and armed robbery at that was an issue. And so whereby, I've given the example before, whereby it became so bad in certain parts of the country that then you would have community vigilante. And community vigilantes would basically take up the responsibility of police in certain areas to police their communities, because they felt that the agencies mandated by government to do this were not doing their job. So they took this up. And it took some time before the federal government said, this is too much, we must do something about this. And this is when SARS essentially was set up to deal with this. Over time, unfortunately, the practitioners of SARS bastardized the entire squad for what it was meant to be and began to use it as a squad or as a unit that would essentially harass even innocent Nigerians on the streets. You could be stopped at any time of the day or night, stopped, harassed, to the point whereby, because of SARS, and openly and blatantly so, Nigerians would disappear. They would be killed, and nobody was asking any questions. And SARS would basically say they were doing their job. Gotten to the point a few weeks ago where it had become so bad that Nigerians had said, our tired is tired, and we have had enough of this. It is about time that FGN disbanded this squad. and protests.
FGN.
Federal government of Nigeria, sorry.
Okay.
It was time that the federal government disbanded this squad and something had to be done. The protest went on for a week in Nigeria and across the major cities in the country, across religious divides, across tribal divides. That This thing has got to stop. There was a little bit of pussyfooting here and there with the government, with the president, in terms of what he wanted to do between himself and the IG of police. And Mr. Damu finally said, you know what, we need to have this and take it seriously. And as of last night, SARS officially was then dissolved. After a week of protests in the country. However, it's just the beginning because these same officers have just been redeployed to other parts of the police force. And until proper investigations are done, until the understanding from everybody is that you cannot use a unit of a security agency to bring terror and harm to the people to which it's essentially supposed to protect. Until there's that understanding, you cannot say that you're free of this kind of thing. So essentially, the work has just begun.
So those who are going onto the streets and demanding the disbandment of SARS, what more do they want? They just wanted there should be no more SARS.
No, there's more than that, because this is why they're still on the street. This is why the protests continue today.
What else do they want?
Because they're saying investigations must be done.
All right, so investigate each individual officer that has worked under these units.
For sure.
Okay.
Across board. And you can't just redeploy them. Essentially, they should not be on this force anymore.
So they should be interdicted until investigations are complete.
How many are there in total?
Well, I don't know the exact number, but I mean, it was a special unit that had branches around the country. So I don't know the exact number.
So this special unit had branches around the country, and what is it that they would do? Set up roadblocks, invade people's houses? What is it?
You're walking along the street and somebody would stop you essentially to have a conversation with you, and the conversation in many cases would turn fatal. Right? So, ask you questions that you weren't able to answer. Why do you have this kind of phone? And this is something that they would ask very many people. Why do you have this kind of phone? What mandate do you have to make a certain amounts of money in the country?
Yeah.
What job do you do? Why are you walking at this time of night? And then for the harassment would turn brutal, unfortunately, many cases. And many, many lives, unfortunately, have been lost. And this gave way to protest. You've heard from me many times that I do believe that protests work. I believe that consistently being in a position where your voice will be heard on matters for which there is merit, I believe that they do work. And I believe that once you get the attention, because if anything, what a protest does for you is you get the attention. You're in somebody's ear. Through then which, if you stay consistent, then you're able to then move for what you really want to happen.
Who should keep the keeper? So this is it. The public have decided they are going to be the keepers of the keeper. And in so doing, they're also going to shine a very bright spotlight on the government.
I was reading about this SARS and all the accusations against the SARS. A number of things that you'd hear. For example, someone, like you're saying, walking down the street and then you're stopped by these police officers and they say, let's see your phone. They take your phone and they order you to open the mobile banking app. And they go into the mobile banking app and say, okay, so transfer this amount of money. Or sometimes they even commandeer someone into an ATM and say, withdraw. So basically they became robbers.
They were thugs. They were thugs.
Stop a young man who's just carrying a laptop bag. Oh, so you're the ones who feel that you're so intelligent, right? Yeah, you're the cream, the top of our community. Bring that laptop. They take the laptop. These are the complaints and counter complaints that you've heard about this particular unit of the police because they have the mandate. Their job is to go and crack down on crime. There was a rise in crime, and then they were set up to go and deal with it. And to deal with it, they don't discriminate.
Did they actually do what they were supposed to do at some point?
In the very beginning, and there was kind of like a sigh of relief. And we're talking about 10 or so odd years ago. And there was a bit of a sigh of relief, so that this community vigilante that we talked about then didn't need to operate anymore, because it would be that the government was doing what they were supposed to do when it came to the protection of its people. But then things began to change. Like I said, they got to a place whereby it was a lord and master and ruler of everybody, and they could do essentially what they wanted. And even hearing from, and let's not get it wrong here. And as we'll hear as we continue with this conversation, and the president of the country yesterday said very many times publicly and through his media handles, and said, you know what, the vast majority of the police force in this country are men and women who are dedicated to protecting the general population of the country. That's fine. Well and good. However, it's not the vast majority that you have an issue with. It's a select, even within the SARS itself, it's not everybody who was a SARS officer who went rogue or who went brutal, right? It's a select few that have taken this responsibility or taken this opportunity or this position and decided to abuse it. And that's the problem. It's not the masses that you have a problem with. It's the few individuals who take power into their own hands and use it in a wrong manner. That's the problem.
You know what is actually particularly strange is that any regime, no matter how often and how much they claim to be democratic, if you have within your ranks or the ranks of the security forces a unit such as this one, who are a law unto themselves, you will be viewed in only one light, that you are a repressive regime. And people will not believe that those people are acting on their own. They'll believe that these are people who have actually been authorized to terrorize the citizenry by those in power, even if it is them who have decided among themselves. But what I find disturbing is, before it gets to the point where the entire nation is up in arms, surely what prevented those in authority from doing something about it from the very beginning? Because there was noise, there were complaints. By the time the citizens get to the point where they feel, no, we're going to take matters in our own hands, how far and how long has this thing actually lasted before they actually get to that point?
Well, we're going to go into some insights for this today, and there's been a lot that's been said. There's been a lot that has been talked about. Like we said, the protests that have been going on for a very long period of time. But today we're going to have a chat with Mr. Bulama Bukarti, who is a human rights lawyer and lecturer at the Faculty of Law at Bayero University in Kano, Nigeria. And he joins us this morning to be able to open this up a little bit and to say what really is going on. And now this decision by the federal government yesterday to dissolve this unit, how far reaching it is in terms of steps in the right direction, in terms of progress, and really does it mean anything in this fight? Bulama, good morning to you from Nairobi. This is in the studio this morning with Siti Muga and Eric Latif as we look at what has been going on with SARS over the last few weeks and the decision that was made yesterday by the government to dissolve it. Good morning.
Good morning, Ndu and the team. Good morning, Nairobi.
It's good to have you, sir, and thank you very much for joining us and speaking to us on this particular matter. So we tried to get a background of what is it that has been happening with SARS and the protests nationally, but you can just maybe give us that background from the ground, how things have been in the last 1 week or 2 weeks after the lead up to yesterday's announcement that this SARS unit has now been disbanded.
Yeah, so just a bit of a background for the sake of those who don't know SARS. Its full meaning is Special Anti-Robbery Squad, and it is a unit of the Nigeria Police Force that was originally set up to fight armed robbery in Nigeria. But over the years, this unit turned themselves into state-sponsored armed robbers, state-sponsored kidnappers, and state-sponsored murderers, or if you like, terrorists against the Nigerian people. They have been killing Nigerians, innocent Nigerians, for no offense. They have been dabbling into matters in which they should have no say or no purview or no authority by law. And so what you saw in the last 1 week was a culmination of years of anger and outcry and impunity that Nigerian youth felt enough was enough. And therefore, we poured out on the street across Nigeria but also all over the globe, in London, in Washington, in other capitals of the world, to tell the Nigerian government that we have had enough of this state-sponsored terrorist group. We have had enough of these state-sponsored thieves and kidnappers and armed robbers, and that we want them gone. And that, happened because SARS has, brutalized so many Nigerians that no Nigerian is just hearing about SARS theoretically. All of us have felt their impact. It's either you have been affected personally, or someone you know, your friend, your family, or neighbor has been affected personally. It is either you have been killed, or someone you know, a member of your family has been killed, or extorted, or detained illegally. And therefore, no Nigerian needed any convincing to come out on the streets. And what you saw, many of the Nigerians that came out on the streets this time around had never protested in their lives. This is the first time they are protesting, and that's because we have had enough of this terrorism.
Was it, when you say the state-sponsored robbers, kidnappers and all, was it individual members of this unit who went rogue and they misused their power, or do you feel that they were being also used and misused by those in power?
No, it is a structural thing. And it is a structural thing because even from the word go, the Nigeria police force deliberately selected those members of the police force that are the most violent, most vicious, and most reckless amongst them and deployed them to SARS. So it was a structural thing. They originally designed this team, and they said some robbers are ruthless, and therefore we should get the ruthless amongst us and deploy them there. And so they are originally selected ruthless, violent, most vicious members of the police force. Now, when they were deployed, I have had, you have had stories of people being stopped on the road for their phones to be searched, for their laptops to be searched. And once you carry a flashy phone, maybe iPhone 11 or iPhone 10, or you, carry a laptop that is big, or even drive a flashy car or have a hairstyle, you have committed an offense. I don't know where they got that law from. I don't know when carrying a laptop or a laptop bag became a crime in Nigeria, but then from that point, they would detain you and try to extort you. If you play by their rules, which is giving them what they want, fine. Otherwise, you might end up being a corpse. They would kill you right there and then, and they would confidently say nothing would happen to us by killing this man. So this is one story. But understand that it is bigger than that. SARS, in all the offices, their offices all over Nigeria, in the 36 states of Nigeria, have a torture chamber where they keep young people who are reported either for armed robbery or for other kinds of offenses, or even for domestic disputes and contractual disagreements. What they do is use those torture chambers where people are electrocuted, where they use ropes that eat into people's skins, where they use horrible things to torture Nigerians. So it's a structural thing, and because the chambers are in the police headquarters of each state, you know that the police officers, every commissioner of police in the state knows that this chamber exists. Now, that's not enough. If you want your debt collected, if you pay them, they will torture your creditor to pay you.
Wow.
If a woman or a man wants to a divorce from their spouse and the spouse doesn't give a divorce, pay SARS. They will torture the other party to give a divorce. If you have a contract that hasn't been enforced and you don't want to go to a court because it will waste time, you have money, you are connected to a member of SARS, report to them, and they will torture that man until they comply with the contract or they die. And I tell you this as someone who has prosecuted each of these cases. I have prosecuted each of these cases against us, and if we have time, I will give you specific stories of individuals that went into a contract and they ended up in SARS office that had to divorce their wives because SARS has tortured them and all that. So it's more endemic, it's systemically, but it's also a mentality, and therefore disbanding the unit itself isn't enough. We need to go further And perhaps this is something we might talk about if we have time.
Bulama, we saw that the protests, by many standards, or many would say that this brought some kind of result. It got into the ears of the federal government in a way that it probably ever hasn't. It has never in this manner, whereby, sure, in the past, promises would have been made, all right, we look into it. But then we saw this announcement come last night and say, okay, we're going to go ahead and dissolve. Would you say that the events of this last week then gave rise to this, that it is because of the protests that you had President Buhari together with the IG of police now saying, okay, this has become too much? Were they responding to the protest or responding to the fact that SARS has actually become terrible? What were they responding to by this action?
No question about that. They were responding to the protest, and it tells you how powerful protests can be. They saw Nigerians on the streets. Initially, for those who followed, the police started using lethal force against peaceful protesters, not carrying anything except the Nigerian flag. People who were only carrying their water, which they drank at the protest. People who were very peaceful, very civil, just chanting "EndSARS." They started using lethal force, using hot water, using tear gas, using live bullets, and they killed some protesters even in the last few days. Now, Nigerians withstood that. We defied that. We said, look, you can't scare us back because we know even if we don't protest, you will continue to kill us. So kill as many as you want to kill, but we will continue to protest and we will continue to expose you to the world. And President Buhari saw the protests in London. He saw the protest in Washington. He saw the protest in Abuja being reported in Kenya, in Washington, in the US, in the UK, in other places of the world. And African politicians, I don't know, I don't want to generalize, but Nigerian politicians in particular do not fear anything more than the international community and bad image with them because they are their lenders. They are the people they run to when they need money, and when they are sick, it is the foreign hospitals they go to. And they don't grant you visa, you are in trouble, you and your family, because they also educate their children outside the country. And because they saw the protest giving them this negative image and exposing them to the world, now they had to respond. It is an incredible accomplishment, and it is an indication to Nigerians and other Africans that civil disobedience, non-violent civil disobedience works. And we must ensure that we hold our leaders accountable through the press. If they don't listen through the press, through our advocacy, then let's pour out on the streets without violence, without destroying property, because it is our property.
Yeah.
Can I
And send the message as strongly as possible as Nigerians did this time around. President Buhari, the Inspector General of Police, and others wouldn't have listened to us if we did not protest. And if we had left this protest in the first 2 or 3 days, if we had got tired, they wouldn't have listened to us. They just understood that we were determined to continue, and that's why they had to bow down to pressure. They had to, swallow the pie and give Nigerians what they wanted.
If we removed the corrupt element from this police unit, that is, of course, academically speaking, would you say that such a force is still needed within Nigeria?
No, it's a force that has outlived its relevance, and there are several reasons. Number one, as I said in the beginning, SARS was initially set up to fight armed robbery when in its heydays. Now, thanks to mobile banking, nobody goes about with cash. In Nigeria, I don't know for Kenya, I will assume mobile banking in Kenya is also so advanced that people don't go about with cash anymore. And therefore, armed robbers have nothing to rob on the highways. And so the crime of armed robbery has formed into different other crimes, like kidnapping. People are being kidnapped for ransom, or cattle rustling, or other forms of crime like banditry, what we call banditry in Nigeria. Most of which takes place on the highways and in rural areas. And as I speak to you, as police are killing innocent Nigerians on the streets of Abuja and Ogomosho and other places yesterday and day before yesterday. Kidnappers and armed robbers have been wreaking havoc in other parts of the country. And so there are no armed robbers. So, armed robbers have changed into something else. And therefore, what you need is anti-kidnapping squad. What you need is anti-banditry squad. What you need is anti-Boko Haram squad, because you have a violent extremist group in the northeast killing Nigerians, thousands of Nigerians per year. And therefore, those members, the whole unit has outlived its relevance. It has run its course. And therefore, it is good time for it to go, so that they may focus on other crimes that have emerged in the country since the years SARS was formed.
Just looking back at how you described their operations in every part of the country, where there's police headquarters, there'd be some torture chambers, and they're basically operating like they're a force and a force unto themselves. Do you feel as if they'd gotten to a point where they were even superior to their superiors, where if you come in, you're a local commissioner of police in a local state, you are basically answerable to this unit as opposed to the other way around?
Definitely. You are a very smart and intelligent person, I must say, John. Is that John?
Oh, Eric.
Oh, Eric. And I say you are very smart and intelligent because SARS, commissioners of police are not, SARS is not answerable to local commissioners of police, even in its setup, even in the policy. Because SARS is a federal unit, and it is answerable only to the Inspector General of Police. And I have had live cases in places like Kano, where I have cases with SARS, and I would report it to the Commissioner of Police Kano Command, and he would say, this force is not under me, they are not answerable to me, they are not responsible to me, and I can't stop them. And so the only way is for you to go to Abuja. So even by its original setup, SARS is above commissioners of police. They are directly under the Inspector General of Police. And when it came to the issue of being, practicalities, if you leave the policy aside, SARS then became a force that's the only force that is directly under the commissioner. So the head of SARS in the state has the ear of the Inspector General of Police in Abuja more than the Commissioner of Police does. And therefore, they became the law unto themselves, not only against innocent Nigerians, but also against their own superiors in the police chain.
Now, with what we see now, we saw a week of protests. We saw this announcement yesterday, and we saw from the same IG of police, I think there were 5 points now that they're trying to now go through with going forward. What are we? Because from what we understand, there's still some protests happening around the country even today, and people have not let down. What more do you expect to see from the government? You can dissolve the squad, that's all right, which is a good thing. But what more needs to be done in order to see that this actually has lived through its lifespan properly?
Yeah, so as I said in the beginning, SARS is not just a unit, it is a mentality. And like I told you, every member of that unit was deliberately selected for being vicious, for being reckless, for being violent. And I can tell you that is from the bottom of the chain to the topmost end of the chain. And I tell you this as someone who has prosecuted cases against the national head of the unit. And I prosecuted cases against him because he killed an innocent Nigerian in Kano. And by a court judgment, the court held that the disease died as a result of the torture he received in their hands. And it ordered compensation against him and other officers. It ordered that he should be investigated and prosecuted, and that the police should publicly apologize to the family. And I speak to you today, none of these orders have been carried out. To make matters worse, instead of prosecuting this man, he was promoted from Kano, where he killed this 24-year-old Nigerian, to become the head of SARS in Abuja. And as we speak today, he is in the inner cycle of the Inspector General of Police. So what am I saying? Now SARS has been disbanded. The next thing we want to see is a swift and transparent investigation and prosecution of each and every member of SARS that is guilty of human rights abuses, including extrajudicial killings. That is something that must be done transparently. No inquiry that is done in private or inside police headquarters would be acceptable to us. We want independent, transparent, swift investigation and prosecution of all of them that are guilty of human rights abuses. Number three, we want to immediately see other members of SARS against whom there are no established cases of human rights abuses to be screened by psychologists and psychiatrists and mental health doctors. Because, there is a good chance that every member has been infected by the virus of brutality in that unit. And therefore, we want to ensure that only members of that unit that are medically certified to be healthy are deployed to other units of the Nigeria Police Force. And we want to see holistic reform in the Nigeria Police Force. As it is today, the Nigeria Police Force in the 21st century investigates cyber crimes by stopping Nigerians on the road to search their phones. How on earth can you investigate cyber crime by searching phones on the street? How can you do that? The average Nigeria policeman in Nigeria sees himself as someone that is above the law. The law that created him, the law that gave him the uniform and the gun he is brandishing and going about with, the gun that was bought with our own money, the very law that establishes him, he feels he's above it.
Right.
And therefore, we need holistic reform for the police to understand that they are also answerable to the public, but also under the law they are enforcing. And also, just moral, trainings and courses and educational programs that will upgrade the moral and educational standing of the average police officer in Nigeria, so that he knows that he is serving the public and he is there to stand for the people, not against the people.
Those are very good points that you're raising there. And let's take a break now. When we come back out of this break, we want to look at what your demands are, the possibility and probability of achieving those demands, and maybe what timeline you're even giving those demands for them to come to reality. We are speaking with Bulama Bukati. He is a human rights lawyer and a lecturer of law at Bayero University in Kano, Nigeria. He is among those who have been in the forefront of the demonstrations against a police unit in Nigeria called the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, and this is called SARS. So there have been these anti-SARS demonstrations around the country, and yesterday the federal national government decided to listen to the demands of the people, and they have now disbanded SARS, but the protesters are saying that's not enough. We still want more. So we were trying to understand exactly what SARS has done to anger the people so much, and then what more do the demonstrators want. 27 minutes to 10. Let's take a break, take a look at weather and traffic. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're
It's warming
listening
up
to
in Nairobi.
Spice
We're at
FM.
21 degrees. We've got highs of 27 and lows of 13 today. Nyeri, 21 degrees is mostly sunny. Highs of 26. Highs of 24 in Nakuru. And partly cloudy conditions at 19. We'll see mostly cloudy conditions in Eldoret today at 18 degrees, highs of 21 and lows of 13. It's mostly sunny in Kisumu at 24, going to highs of 27 and lows of 19. 24 the high in Kakamega with rain expected later. And in Mombasa, 29 degrees and mostly cloudy, sunny conditions to carry on throughout the rest of the afternoon with highs of 31 and lows of 25. We'll see highs of 29 in Malindi. Stepping out of Kenya and then into Kampala will be mostly cloudy at 22 currently, highs of 26 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam at 30 will be mostly cloudy, highs of just highs of that, and thunderstorms expected later coming down to lows of 24. Cloudy conditions in Johannesburg at 10. We'll see highs of 16. Lagos is partly cloudy at 31 degrees. We'll see lows of 24. And let's move east now. Mostly sunny conditions in China, in Beijing specifically. And we're going through into the evening with lows of 6. London at 8 degrees is partly cloudy, highs of 13 and lows of 7 with a sprinkle expected later. Sunny conditions in Paris at 7, highs of 15 as things begin to cool down at this time of the year. Light rain showers being experienced in New York at 14. The high will be 15 and lows of 10.
Spice FM, Malindi.
Okay, so looking a little bit better on Thika Road today as we're trying to get into the CBD. Not so bad. We still have a bit of a bumper-to-bumper situation on Mombasa Road, however. The eastern and southern bypasses are not looking too bad either. So almost officially out of traffic hour for now. And hopefully as we get through the day, we get into Tuesday looking a little bit better than it was today. Something does jump out at you, let us know. Spice FMKE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter and text us on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
39 means what? 21. 21 minutes to 10. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room is Eric Latif, Ndu Okosi Muga. On the line is Bulama Bukati, human rights lawyer from Nigeria, talking about protests that have borne fruit in this country. And these were protests against the special anti-robbery squad in Nigeria that had basically just run amok, gone rogue, doing all manner of things that were against the tenets of human rights. And Bulama has also told us he has personally prosecuted cases against this particular unit. Basically, this unit was running as if it's the only force that is in the country. But Bulama, you're saying even with this disbandment of the SARS unit by the national government yesterday, you still are demanding more. And you've even gone as far as saying you even want psychiatric evaluation of each individual officer before they're redeployed to other units. Now, how many officers in total are we talking about? And when you talk about all these now other extra demands, what kind of timeline are you giving it?
Yeah, so we are talking about dozens of officers in each state, and we have 36 states of the Federation. And because of lack of transparency in the police system, we don't know their total number, but I would assume they're in the hundreds. Now, the timeline when it comes to investigation is immediate. The president has announced, the Inspector General of Police has announced that they are commissioning an investigation. And what we want is a transparent, independent judicial commission of inquiry that must start within this month. We are 10 days into this month or so, and what we want to see is investigating, taking speed within this month. And then after the investigation, you know who are culpable, and therefore would go to courts of law, And then if there are any members who are not culpable, because there will be very few of them, and then those that should go through psychiatric evaluation, while those that are found wanting by the investigation team go to the through the criminal court process. Now, one other demand that I forgot to mention is adequate compensation for victims. For disease victims who their families must be compensated, and for those who have been injured, maimed, or rendered disabled by SARS, they must be adequately compensated by the government, and we hold the government directly and vicariously responsible for that, because SARS is working with their authority and under their power. And so these demands must start immediately, and we will continue to monitor them. And I can tell you, Nigerians will pour out back to the street if we see anything that is untoward regarding our demands. If they don't meet any of our demands, we are going to go back on the street. As you know, protests are continuing even today, and that's because we have seen too many pronouncements of reforming SARS. The government had promised to reform SARS 4 times in the last 4 years, but they didn't reform. Now that they said we are disbanding them, we won't let our guards, we won't hold our breath until we see it actually disbanded in practice. We want to stop seeing their officers on the road. We want their torture chambers to be closed down, and we want the whole name to be erased from the Nigeria police structure, and that's immediate. And then you have the commission of inquiry that must be led by credible and questionable Nigerians, and then others like the psychiatric evaluation would follow.
You mentioned something about compensation. Do we have any circumstances, situations where the government has been...
Sorry, I can't hear you.
For when any wrong has been committed against an ordinary citizen?
Sorry, could you come back again?
Yes, I
lost
can.
you for a few seconds.
It's all right. You mentioned about seeking compensation, and I'm asking, historically speaking, are there situations in which the government has actually been known to pay compensations for ills that have been committed by some arm of government against an ordinary citizen?
Yeah, there are. Of course, you will have to go extra mile to get it paid. But I have done several cases in which the government had been asked to pay compensation. In some, they have paid after we have taken the process out. But in the case of SARS, many haven't been paid. And I'll give you examples.
Yes.
There was a case I did in Jigawa where members of the police force invaded the house of a particular citizen, and for political reasons, because they were triggered by the governor to do that. That man was contesting in the opposition party, and therefore his house was invaded. There was a compensation of 10 million naira, which is about maybe 25,000 pounds, that was awarded by the court. The government did not pay, but I took out what we call garnishee proceeding, which is attaching the money in the account of that individual or the government he was heading. And therefore we got the money paid. But in the case of SARS, in 2014, I got a 10 million naira judgment against members of SARS for killing a citizen of Nigeria in Kano. And they did not pay. We took out garnishee proceedings, and the court garnished their account. But then we couldn't proceed because they have refused to pay. And when the account holder refuses to pay, you need the police to enforce it. And this time around, we are moving against the police. And it is like asking a thief to investigate and prosecute himself.
Yep.
And so it didn't go on. And so there are instances in which courts have ordered, the orders have been complied with. And I just gave you one example, but there are many others I have personally prosecuted. But there are others in which the court have ordered, but governments haven't paid. And so those kinds of cases are also there.
Why do you think things happened in the way that they did this time around, Bulama? I mean, we had everybody on the streets. You had young people, older people. You had an outpouring of celebrities this time. I listened to you, and it seems that this fight, you've been carrying a lot of it on your shoulders, of course, with other human rights and advocates and practitioners. But it seemed that this time with this protest, it seems that this fever that had hit everybody hit in a way that it had never hit before. Why do you think that is? And you talked also about the importance of protesting. Why is it important for people who would not necessarily have anything to do with things like this in terms of their trade? Why is it important for them to come along?
I mean, several questions there, but I will unpack and address some of them. The first is, why is it this time this way this time around? And as you said, this I will mention three things. The first is that this has taken years of relentless advocacy. I have been moving against us, speaking against us in the Nigerian media for more than 5 years now. And I have personally also been threatened by them. My family has been threatened by them because they have gone wrong. They have made plans to kill me. But you know, when you are doing it for the sake of the people, for God's sake, God will bring people that will save you. And that was how God put someone in the sun's rug to love me and to like me, and He would give me information on their meetings, on their plans and their schemes against me and my family. Now, that's, it's not only me, but other human rights advocates, human rights lawyers, and media activists in Nigeria have also continued to advocate for the end of SARS. So this is accumulated years of advocacy and anger and outcry that was caused by SARS impunity. That's the first thing. The second thing is social media. Nigerians very effectively use social media. They use Twitter, Facebook, and other social media outlets very well. We use the MSARS now hashtag, which trended worldwide as the first day before yesterday, and also one of the best yesterday, and with millions of tweets under that. Now, social media was a big part of that, and that's to tell you that people may use social media for bad things, but we can use it to promote democracy, to promote transparency, accountability, and hold our leaders to account, especially in Africa, where our institutions are weak, where our presidents have turned our institutions into their private ownership. Now, the third thing I would mention is something I have mentioned, I have alluded to, which is the experience of every Nigerian. No Nigerian needs to be told that SARS is brutal because he has seen it on himself, or she has seen it with her family, or a neighbor, or at least someone they know. And so this is, years of all these things. But as to the question, why other citizens should take interest in matters that don't directly affect them, the first thing I would mention is that we should be our brother's keepers. We don't need to be personally affected by a particular injustice before we feel that it is injustice, because injustice to one is injustice to all. And if as a human being you only live for yourself and things that affect you, then you are not better than an animal. You are not better than a domestic animal that only eats and fends for themselves. Now, and so it's important for us to understand that impunity, even if it happens to others, affects you. Number one, because you are a member of the human family, but also because if you allow people to continue to act with impunity, at the end of the day, you may also be affected, because that will embolden them to do even more.
So, Bulama, you're talking about, demanding all this and wanting an independent judicial inquiry to look into individual officers who've served in SARS over the years. Then one would expect that you, as the civil society and other protesters, would be piling up a case against the individual SARS officers. Is it something that you're doing? For example, putting up a case, going for victims and getting the victims to record statements, lining up the victims so that in case this judicial inquiry commences, you already have people who would come and testify against the officers.
Definitely, we are doing that, and we have done that before. I have told you of cases we have done in court against individual members of SARS. But I am already in contact with some of my clients, and I tell you, all the cases I did against us are cases I did pro bono. They are free because as a lawyer, I see my first job as defending the community, defending the society, standing for those that can't stand for themselves, being a voice for those who are voiceless in our community.
Yeah.
Because there are many people that haven't been privileged to be educated. And as human beings, we got educated by sheer privilege. And therefore, we have a duty and responsibility towards that aren't educated, towards those that don't have that can't afford the services of lawyers in our midst.
Yeah.
Now, I know that other lawyers are also doing the same. Other lawyers around the country also have clients. Some have can pay, and therefore they are paying. Others can't pay, and therefore they might have pro bono cases that will go before the. That will be presented before the Judicial Commission of Inquiry. And if the Judicial Commission of Inquiry does not give us what we want, if they don't, abide by the law and the facts before them, then we will go to courts of law. We will prosecute cases against individual members of SARS before courts of law and take proceedings of mandamus to compel the Attorney General to bring criminal actions against them. All these are things on the table, and I can tell you no option is off the table. This is a fight we are determined to keep going, and we are determined to keep that going with everything we have.
I think you have your work cut out for you, but also this is a very good cause that you've taken, Bulamat, and we want to thank you very much. As we conclude this conversation, we have had many protests against various police units in this country, police brutality. Looking at the lessons that you have picked up from your own protests in the country, what would you like to advise those who are social justice campaigners in this country who would like also to see action taken against either individual police officers or specific police units?
The first advice is for them to keep going. It is a challenging task. It is very demanding. And sometimes there are even personal sacrifices. Sometimes some people pay the supreme sacrifice. But what it needs is the determination and doggedness to continue. Because the oppressor would always continue to use every force within their reach to ensure that they weaken those calling for justice and accountability. So my first advice is keep moving. Number two, plan, organize, and implement your plan. Understand that this is not something that is individual. There is no need for one person to say, I am taking the credit. This is a movement. It is something that is credeless. It is a thankless job. You don't need to be the leader, and the leaders should understand that others should be given an opportunity to be at the forefront, because this is not a fight for ego. This is not something personal. It is a movement that must be kept going. Number three, people will understand that, campaigners should understand that there will always be challenges, but there will be light at the end of the tunnel. And that's what we saw in Nigeria. We have seen a lot of operation in Nigeria. You might have seen a lot in Kenya. Others in other parts of the world might have seen a lot, but we have to keep going. Civil rights activists all over the world have been fighting for ages. They have succeeded in some aspects, and there are aspects that are still left, that there are things that are left to be desired.
Yep.
And we just have to keep pushing. We have to keep going. Understand that the oppressor will not give you what you want on a platter of gold. Keep moving, keep peaceful, organize, plan, implement your plan, stand united. Never allow politicians to polarize you, because they are very good at disuniting people. They are very good at throwing money in your ranks, so that those of us that are corrupt might take it and then become part of them. Keep moving, and posterity would remember you. God will reward you for what you are doing.
Asante sana. Thank you very much for speaking to us, and have a great day in Kano today.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I must say, Spice FM is the best FM station I have been associated with, and I have been associated with many. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and bye for now.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, sir.
So the conversation continues about lactose intolerance as well. We've spoken to people who have lactose intolerance. We understand what lactose intolerance is all about. I have my own personal experiences with the body refusing to deal with this sugar that's in milk. And we're asking you to go to our social media handles this morning and just give us your experience with the lactose. Because KCC has come up with this new product that is lactose-free. And this is the Gold Crown lactose-free milk that's available across the country in those supermarkets that we talked about. And these supermarkets are, if you go to Carrefour, if you go to Chandarana, if you go to Ketias, Naivas or Quickmart around the country, you'll be able to get this Gold Crown lactose-free. It comes in 3 sizes. The family pack is a liter. The convenient pack, it's 250 milliliters. And the pocket-friendly pack, that is 500 milliliters, any of those places. So, do we have people who have sent in their messages and you feel, CT, that they really ought to get this particular pack?
Well, I see one.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're competing and you're only one, you will, of course, be number one.
A number of them have actually sent in, but Amulioto feels that this one tells a story very well. So let me just read it. Wayne Bryan at Wayne_Bryan on Twitter says, my lactose intolerance story is my stomach used to hurt and I could get bloated when I ate anything with lactose. Now, he's been able to discover lactose-free milk and he really appreciates this. And because of that, Wayne Bryan, we give you this gift hamper from New KCC that has this plus more products. This is the Gold Crown lactose-free milk. Congratulations, very hearty congratulations to Wayne Brown. More winners tomorrow. Keep it right here as we tell you more about lactose intolerance and what you need to know about it, how you get to know that you actually could be suffering from lactose intolerance, what you need to do when you go and tell your doctor to tell you the story. So, as we come to the end of the show today, CT, you'll remind us of today's proverb, but what do you make of the Nigerians and what they've done in the last 1 week?
The thing is, I don't think the government anticipated that this would happen. When you hear stories of the number of times that they have promised and have not done anything, but then it also tells you the tale of when people determine that it is clear the government isn't going to do anything for themselves and they decide to find a peaceful solution to their problems. That's what we're seeing here.
Great.
Yes. I don't think something of this sort has occurred in Nigeria before.
No, I mean, it's
Unprecedented.
Unprecedented, really. It hasn't happened in the manner in which it happened. And bringing together the kinds of people, because like I said, truly it did cut across what would be the normal tribal lines, cut across what would be the normal religious lines. And there you have the results.
There we go. As we conclude, City, just remind us today's proverb.
Right. Every morning in Africa, a gazelle wakes up. If it knows it must run faster than the fastest lion or it will be killed. Every morning, a lion wakes up, knows it must run faster than the slowest gazelle or it will starve. Whether you are a lion or a gazelle, when the sun comes up, you had better start running.
When the sun comes up, run. You better start running.
Yes.
You either be eaten or you will starve. Hiya, if you don't do any of those. Thank you very much. Join us again tomorrow morning. It's now 10 o'clock. Have a good day.